Q1Q Pharmacy. Quality healthcare at affordable price.
மணக்க மணக்க மசாலா, மணக்காடு சிக்கன் மசாலா மற்றும் சில்லி சிக்கன் மசாலா.
மணக்காடு மசாலா. Daily, daily. Taste daily. Taste the daily.
Has had a trip into the gravel and has had to gain assistance. The IRC car did not that long ago, and the sister Vortex is being pulled out. I mean, there are not many cars with a pure orange roof. The Vortexes are some of those cars, so we'll get a confirmation to you as soon as we possibly can. Pelin Racing again taking the chance to come in and top up, so they're just a little splash and splash and splash. It's like when you see taxis come into a fuel station, they put a fiver in. I've never understood why that is. Maybe early in the shift, just as they're building up their earnings.
Crucially, that last visit has handed Manuel Lauck the lead now. Previously, those last two kept him ahead because he had such a buffer, but he's now dropped to second position. I don't know how vitally important that is, and it's so hard to know so early on in the race with all the various wranglings of strategy, and it's quite hard to keep up as to who's on what fuel. But yes, Felice Liamini now dropping down to second behind the Proton Uber competition, number 73.
I'm surprised there's actually any room left to fill.
Well, that's
they've been in and in and in all the time, and just keeping topping up as they go. Potentially in one of the earlier stops where they had where the tank was more empty when they came in, maybe they short filled, which is what brought them up the order a little bit, and then they're now catching that back up again. So maybe this actually string of code 60s is not such a bad thing for Pelin Racing, and they don't have to worry about driver time with Felice because he's semi-pro, so they can do as little or as much as they want with him. So that's really important. In fact, it's the Pelin Ferrari passes under our feet at the start-finish line.
There you go. It was a Vortex.
It was a Vortex. Good spot.
Well, it was your spot. Patting yourself on the back there.
Well done, me.
Olivia Gomez, 702. It must be, I would imagine.
Yes, it is. Yeah, the 702, the leading GTX car before that. Be interesting to see if it's hung on to that advantage, although its rivals in class, as we mentioned, have also had a trip into the gravel. So it's one apiece in the three GTX cars. Pelin Racing have actually also lost. They've lost second position as well, by the looks of things, to Scuderia Praha during that top up. Now, one car that we're looking to see what penalty they got. We had very few penalties so far today, but the car 965 broke the code 60 coming out of the pits, and I cannot see a penalty for them yet, strangely. Maybe that's still being assessed. Back to green flag we go. I'm looking at the wrong times. There we go. No, it's not on the penalty list either. Very strange. Okay, we'll keep a close watch.
Breaking rules.
I know. That was very surprising. 4 hours 46 minutes to go. Let's take an update with Diana Binks down in the pits.
I've just come to the Red Ant Racing garage, and I also just jumped out of the car from the number 93. You've been in the car so about an hour and a half now?
Just over an hour indeed. Was quite wet.
It looks very wet. How tricky is it with the conditions constantly changing and the car evolving?
Making the best of it. It's just having fun. Okay, it's slippery, but it's like it should be every time.
You had a bit of a shifting issue earlier on, I think when Kenneth was in the car and then when you jumped in. Was that resolved?
The AMG guys plugged their computer in and reset the fault, so I didn't have any issue at all. So should be good to go to the end, I think.
And how would you describe the conditions out there at this point in the race? Very early on, of course, but obviously everybody's facing these sort of challenging conditions to manage the tyres and to manage the traffic.
Okay, there's a lot of spray on the high-speed sections, but it's very good doable with the Michelin tyre. It's the best grain tyre out there, so it's perfect to drive.
You have a great team behind you here. You guys have all raced together for some time, so you know each other well. How important is that?
It's the most important. Doing the great pit stops, making sure the car keeps on driving. Without that you can't win.
And how would you describe this Mugello circuit?
For me, it's one of the best tracks in Europe. It's fast. It's no room for error. It's perfect.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, another spin for the IRC GT. Luckily, been able to keep going. It's Grant Donaldson on board. Him and Grant Curry have made a big journey to be here and to take part in the 24-hour series, and it's a very popular spot. Coming out of turn 3, Poggio Secco, gets quite hard into the barrier, the rear left corner, getting into the barrier at the wheels, so you hope they've not.
You want to be on, and then the pit limiter to be on as well, so when you come out the pits you can release pit limiter, but code 60 is on, and oh dear, that car is back in the gravel trap once again.
Oh no, well, it's all happening. So that same car that now has a 60-second time penalty is in the gravel. This is going to be code 60, but big news for car 81, Era Motorsport overtaking another car during code 60. That is a 60-second time penalty, and at current speed that's half a lap. That is really, really punishing, and you have to serve that under green too. Particularly punishing for a car that has more pros than perhaps it lets on, with Ryan DL and Jake Hill in that car. Yes, it's a Pro-Am entry, but they're pretty talented and have risen up to 4th position now. But just say 1 minute at this stage isn't too bad, because so much can play out with code 60s to shuffle you around. It's so hard to predict, but certainly a disadvantage, of course. But a long way to go. It is, yeah. That's going to put them on the back foot a little bit. As the 9, we're going back code 60 again. No, there is not a problem with your stream, whether that be visual or audio. We are going back code 60 again. It is not like a stuck record, but it feels like it, as the 965 MDM car is going to have to require intervention, so it will be picked up and put back onto the circuit. Code 60 indeed we go, with 4 hours and 22 minutes left in this first part of the Michelin 12 Hours of Mugello. And probably a perfect time for our own driver change in the commentary box.
Yes,
I'm going to go and have a nice
food.
bit of lunch, and the very capable Bruce Jones will step into my seat in a moment, just as he's derobing at the moment. Don't get excited, but ladies and gentlemen, too much. This is radio, of course. As Bruce jumps into the chair. A pleasant lunch, Mr. Jones.
Magnificent lunch, thank you very much. Every army marches on its stomach, and it seemed there's not a lot of incident when I was down having lunch. I'd look up, I'd look down, there'd be code 60, but the track is definitely drying out. That's good news. And let's see how everybody gets on. But that penalty, as I was walking back into the booth for Era Motorsport, could be a factor. Ben, you're quite confident that they may be able to smooth out that little ruffle in their path over the remaining hours in this race. Of course, we've still got 4 hours and 20 minutes of today's opening 7 hours, but you know, in all forms of endurance racing, it's about minimising your penalties. Doesn't mean don't have any. It's almost impossible to have none. But certainly it's a little factor. They've just got to be on their toes and read all the other situations as they unfold in front of them. But what we really need in this race is a stint where it's green flag for long enough to people to get back in the swing. Some of the crews, when you had code 60, goes back green, code 60 again, guessed right in terms of getting extra fuel into their tanks, but others realised the queue was going to be too long. They just happened to be in the wrong part of the lap, the early part of the lap when the code 60 was thrown. And the last thing you want is to come in and wait in line for your fueling. Any advantage you're going to gain is going to be thrown away.
And that is why, at this stage, penalties, yes, it's a minute where you're stationary, but you can have that same situation happen, losing a minute in queuing for fuel, or getting the code 60 slightly wrong, or it doesn't fall in your favour. So we so often big up problems early on in the race, and then find by the end of the race they have absolutely no influence on the result. And you sometimes go, oh no, that's one of our favourites has got a big problem, and actually in the end they still win.
Yeah,
so
it's also about just being sure that you're on that lead lap at the end of the first 7 hours of this 12-hour race. And if you fall just by dint of a small penalty the wrong side of that margin, you're just suddenly a lap down by dint of, let's say, 5 seconds, and it really does hurt you a bit. But you've still got 5 hours to come back and play again on the Sunday. But looking around the screens, I know the cars aren't kicking up spray because they're going at code 60 pace, but the track is much drier. It is brighter. You can see the top of the mountains in the background. You certainly couldn't do that when we came into the circuit this morning, and even more certainly couldn't do it at the start of the race when suddenly we had the first really heavy flurry of rain.
Yeah, and I think this is where the Michelin tyre struggles a little bit, because it's not quite as soft. It is still retaining its structure, which is there to get rid of water, but there's not much water to get rid of. And so, you know, you want the F1 Pirelli style, where the intermediate tyre chews up so much and becomes a slick tyre. That's sort of where we're not quite at yet, but if it stays like this in an hour or so, I think that's where you'd want to be. This is Code 60 number 9. We're about 46 minutes of Code 60 running, of 1 hour and 47 minutes of race running, and Diana is down in the pits.
111 Racing IRC GT car is now back in the pit lane. The team are it's been taken off the truck. They're just lowering it down on the pit apron, and it's obviously causing a little bit of congestion down here, but they seem to be working as hard as they can. I can see a lot of gravel and grass in the front of the car. I don't see any major damage to the left-hand side. They're just turning it around now. The bonnet is slightly loose, but they're going to get that back into the garage. They said they've got lots of parts, so they are definitely going to work hard to see if they can get that back out and on track. And I know that Grant, who was behind the wheel, is obviously pretty upset, doesn't want to talk at the moment, but I'll go back and have a chat with him a little bit later.
I imagine frustrated as well, because it really did look as though over the course of a couple of laps he just couldn't get on top of the car. The car was sort of had
it
a
seemed
mind
to just
of its
go
own.
away from him, didn't it, when
Yeah.
he actually started that spin out.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a nice drone shot of the recovery process, which, yes, if Holmgard Motorsport wants to pit right now, or even Ebby Motors, they are not going to have any opportunities.
Holmgard were just in a few minutes before, so before they actually took it off the truck, they came in, did their stuff, changed driver and went back out.
As if they knew.
Yeah. And it stopped raining down here in the pit lane. Just thought I'd let you know that.
And we go back to green. So we go on board with Proton Uber competition. Manuel Lauk still leads. He's just come out the pits. We think he still leads, with Matthias Weibo in second, with half a lap difference.
Yeah, and again, this is the point at which you hold your breath. And will anyone spin at the start of the rejoin? Yes, the E2P Aston Martin has gone around, but the track is as dry as it's been. So that was just a case of not a lack of grip per se from rain, but simply from tyres that lost their pressure, lost their temperature, running at 60 kph. And that's been a car that's been going very smoothly through this race, just around the tail of the top 10. But alas, as it sits with its nose in the middle of the track, or two-thirds of the towards one side, the engine is running, waiting for a gap to rejoin, but you know, all your good work just gets crumpled up and thrown into the waste paper basket, doesn't it? Now he's got to drive on the grass, and that's been wet all morning, and he's going to, on the other side of the track, then he's going to rejoin, but a lot of rear wheel spin there, and gets it back on terra firma, wet terra firma, and always that element, Ben, when you drive on the curbs, the track might be drying out, but the curbing is always wet after there's been rain, consistent rain as well.
And you explained how this area has been affected, means that the grass isn't just wet, it is sodden, and he was trying to go uphill there on the grass. That was lucky that he did not get bogged down Oscar Piastri style from last weekend's Grand Prix, because Paulo Rigueiro was asking for trouble there, and he has managed to get out. He was heading for a sausage curb as well, just to stop his progress, but just about missed that, and will potentially drop from 12th position, but there was a big gap to the first of our 992 cars.
Yeah, I mean, it's, what you forget is on a circuit like this with a lot of gradient, it's one of the steepest parts of the track. Trying to go even across level wet grass is one thing, but trying to get it harness all the power and get back up the slope, and then, as you say, cross the curbing onto the track. But he's managed to do so. Tyres will have been messed up a little bit there, but coming back round, I don't suggest he'll need to go into the pits. And he. It's always interesting when you've reached. Oh, actually,
wow.
So, you know, just trying at full pace and snaking around. But again, even though we talk about the track drying out, there is very much the racing line that's dry. But anything beyond, even though it looks fairly dry to the eye, it definitely is not. But right, apart from that little spin for the E2P Racing Aston Martin, the first lap, 2 laps after the restart have gone smoothly. That's the moment at which the danger of a Code 60 sort of slightly dissipates. Everyone's now got right temperature in their tyres, temperature in their bread.
Change for second place here. Felice Jelmini looks to the outside of Matthias Weibo. Remember, Jelmini losing time in the pits, being in the pits when it was green flag. Wasn't able to do it all the way around turn 1, but had the inside line for turn 2. Does seem as though at turn 2 a lot of people running around the outside, the karting wet line rather than using the racing line seems to be better there. Unfortunately for Felice, having to take the racing line, but the shorter distance travelled put him up to second position, 45 seconds back from Manuel Lauk at the moment.
Yeah, this is the start of his second season racing GT3 cars, but for Felice it's been TCRs for many years, but he's really adapting very well indeed. And Pelin Racing being impressive, they decided not to start the number 23, the sister car, which was the 488 GT3, just because, I don't know, I think they were slightly concerned about the 2 days of potential rain and decided to maybe keep that car for later in the season. Still 4 more rounds of the European 24H series for 2025, and maybe that was a wise decision, maybe not. But anyhow, now people are learning about the tyres they didn't know much about before the start of today, which is how Michelin's wet tyres would work for them. Up the slope from that fantastic double apex first corner, and again the deep line into turn 2. If you don't get grip on the outside line, then you've got painted curbing, and then you've got gravel. So you've got to be sure. But right from the formation lap, you can see the front runners going very, very deep, staying right when they wanted to be turning left until quite deep into that second corner, into Lucco. But clearly it works for them. There is not just up and down in this track, but certain points on the circuit it's slightly banked there that pulls you to the left and then drops away. Not so much for banking when you get to the third corner, Poggio Secco, and that's why we saw so many cars, even in the drive, running over the curbing into the gravel trap and then bringing it back onto the circuit. But one of the hardest corners is turn 6 when you're going down the slope from Casanova to Savelli, and we've seen an awful lot of people getting it wrong there. And if you get it wrong, you're then going to get your entry to the next corner, the first Arrabbiata, because it follows very soon afterwards. You're going to be all over the place, and certainly it can cost you big time. Quite a few spinners down there. One of the interesting... Oh, another spin from the 901. Keeps it out the gravel, though, so should be able to continue. He does. Who's in the 901 at the moment? Well, it's his car. It's Ajith Kumar. The name's on the door. The name's on above the door as well. So, super popular actor from India who just brought so many fans to Dubai 24 Hours, getting it wrong. And the E2P Racing Aston Martin, by the way, is short-cutting back to the pits. Instead of turning to Savelli, it goes off at turn 6. That means the first part of the lap doesn't count for anything. He's starting the lap all over again, albeit in the pit lane. But that's the car that had a rotation as soon as we got going. For the latest restart. Ajith Kumar is running back at a more normal pace. He's on the black stuff now, but changeable conditions, and even if you're just changing from slightly wet to almost dry, you know, it's just a point of evolution. And again, it's driving experience. So Ajith started racing a long time ago in single-seaters, but his acting career took him away from all that. But it's good to have him here, and he'll be loving it. He's looking forward to this season. Next stop, Spa-Francorchamps. That sounds good, doesn't it?
Curiously, the Aston Martin there, Bulgaria, missing half a lap, therefore that whole palaver doesn't count at all for anything. He must be very, very desperate. I mean, he can't be desperate on fuel because he's only been in the fuel area a short period of time. He's now heading into his pit box, so there must be some damage there for that car, which is, we never saw any collision with any barrier. No, it was an innocuous spin all on his own, ended up sort of half on the track, half off, but unless he damaged the car restarting going up the slope on that wet grass, but it might be a driver confidence thing. He just might have something in his mind that he felt tipped him into that spin. Luckily, no other cars around him. Another change. This is Sergiu Nicolai trying to go around the outside of Matthias Weibo, and at that point it didn't work. But such was the confidence, he fired it down the inside and made it happen at turn 2. We saw just the very end of that in live. They were very lucky when I was in pit lane, the AB Motors guys, to get themselves pitted under green flag conditions just before Code 60 came out, which meant they were able to fully fuel and get the whole service done. And then the Code 60 encouraged everybody else into the pits. Meanwhile, they were already done. So that worked well for them, and they've managed to make that work in a way that the Lamborghini, who was in a similar situation, the ARC Bratislava car, hasn't really taken advantage of it. But that's a fully AM car, so it's kind of expected to fall down the order once the most pro driver got out of it. Yeah, I mean, you know, that's fortune landing in your lap. But I must say that the pace of Matthias Weibo, he's really, no wonder he got passed by Sergiu Nicolai. The last lap, there was 6 seconds between them in terms of pace. So the erstwhile race leading number 56
Ferrari from Scuderia Praha for now falling down the order, but pulling away at the front of the field is Manuel Lauk, Proton Huber competition. Porsche weren't really anywhere. It was all about Ferrari and Mercedes in the dry conditions in qualifying or following practice, but ever since the start of the race, when Manuel Lauk was really pushing on, that car has been looking very handy indeed. Felice Gelmini is trying to give chase. In fact, he's faster. Last time around, took about 2.5 seconds out of the race leading Porsche. So Ferrari still in the mix, and Pelin Racing came here, I think, with high hopes, but didn't really show their hand when it went through practice, but they've been getting better and better through the course of the race. And Felice Gelmini, I heard just as I nipped off for lunch, Peter extolling his virtues, because he really got stuck in and put in some really great sector times. Peter went and crunched all the sectors overnight and came back saying, well, yeah, like Ferrari can really string them together. And one of the stars was Felice, so that's now being proved as well out on the track.
Yeah, Felicia's actually, since being in that car, has done 4 different pit stops, but has stayed in the car throughout them. We've seen lots of those stops as the 44 Lamborghini runs perhaps a little too wide. You can run wide, yes, of course, and I imagine that Italian flag paint is FIA spec paint, which has a sand in it, which gives it some grip. That is what's recommended to paint all the white lines at any FIA grade circuit, and most importantly FIM grade circuit, to give the paint some grip. But when you go to street circuits, it's not necessary. So a big slide on the entry into, can't recognise where we are there.
I was thinking it was a Arrabbiata 1, yeah. So they've come down the slope to Savelli, and again, if you run deep in the corner, your options become limited quite quickly, and the Lamborghini driver got away with that. Gerhard Twerres, the Austrian, he's running in 8th place overall, lapping a lot faster than the heart of racing Mercedes of Hannah Grisham that's in 7th. So I guess that's why he got sight of her and was going, right, here's my target. And, you know, you just get encouraged to maybe just attack a little more. But what we have to say, if you're just joining us and you're looking at, oh, it's they're using the windscreen wipers, but it's dry, there's no spray from the cars. Conditions are changing all the time. These are the best they've been since the drivers were out in qualifying. 2 days of sunshine, almost spring-like weather here, and it's reverted to much cooler temperatures here on the Saturday. This is a 7-hour segment of the race. We've got 5 hours to complete it on Sunday here at Mugello. The drivers loving the experience, but for this race, they're learning about the 2025 Michelin wet weather rubber for the first time, and it's not always ideal to be doing that when you're in racing circumstances, but we're now quite a while in, and it's been quite a while since we've heard from Di. Let's find out what the latest news is.
The number 90 E2P Racing, Aston Martin Vantage came into the pit lane, as you saw earlier. You talked about it had a spin and went off track. That car has come back into the garage, and the team have taken the car into the garage area. They tell me that after the spin it lost power, but when it came in to the pit lane, obviously there was lots of grass and stuff in the front grille, so they're doing some electrical checks now and checking throughout the car, but it's still sitting in the garage. They've obviously taken the front off the car to have a more in-depth look to see if they can find it, but they were sort of shaking their heads a little bit to find out why that power loss had happened.
And we also saw it spitting a lot of flame, didn't we, as it was coming back to the pits, almost as though it was consuming unburnt fuel in the exhaust system, which is a telltale mechanical sign that there's something going on, but more often than not, it's an electrical problem, as Karina Gosner has once again spun around in that Mercedes. It's the second time the MP Racing car is facing the wrong direction. Good, though. She's found some tarmac to spin on this time, and that means we don't have to go code 60 to retrieve her.
Sitting all wheels off the circuit on the exit to Savelli, just before the entrance to the first of the 2 uphill right-handers at Arrabbiata 1 and 2, but windscreen wipers going, lights flashing, either waiting to rejoin or has some problem. I can't see why, unless the marshal's saying, stay, stay, stay. We have a handful of cars coming down the slope to Savelli, and now she goes. The GT4 Mercedes from Venture goes on past. Who's at the wheel of that? Matthew Higgins, a second driver in that car. Going very nicely in class, but actually it's fallen back to 3rd in class. In fact, the pace has changed a little bit. That's now the Lotus leading the way with the Massimo Abati top in GT4. On the start-finish straight, there is still spray to be had when you get a whole grouping of cars. Let's take a look at the pace of the cars at the front of the field. It's the car in second. It's Felice Gelmini who's the quickest of those front runners, almost 2 seconds a lap faster than Manuel Lauk last time around. So Pelin Racing having a go at taking down the chunk. It's under 40 seconds now to race leader the Proton Huber competition car with Manuel Lauk on board. Quite a few of the crews, Ben, have got their third driver on board the car, but certainly for the race leading crew from Proton Huber competition, they've only stuck with the race starting driver. Manuel Lauk has had a good old run in that, and Klaus Bachler popped in. He's the superstar in that car. He's been doing extraordinary things in Porsche 911s for many years, but they've still got two of their drivers who haven't been out in this race.
Yeah, they've used the best two, really, the strongest two, and Lauk's done nearly 2 hours of the running of, what, 3 hours that we've been going so far? Nearly, not quite. So really has done the lion's share of it, and Klaus Bachler doing the rest means that maybe that car is artificially higher than it can possibly be come race end. The combination of all the different drivers, especially in this series where there is such a difference, does make reading the picture very, very hard at this early part of the race.
Oh, look, Ben, even in qualifying it was difficult. You had 3 sessions for each of the categories, and you had your aggregate time across all 3. You had to put your least experienced driver in first, so you could have a car that's actually got a very good least experienced driver, so that's the top of the tables. And then you've got to be mated to your quicker drivers who go in sessions 2 and 3. So it really was up and down. I thought it was a fantastic qualifying format, but you had some teams that were first after the first, second session, second after the second, then 12th after the third, as they knitted all their bits together. So it was chopping and changing, as is the weather here. But now even in the getting to see the mountains the far side of the valley, so things are definitely improving. But northern Italy has had a lot of rain in the past 10 days. Landslips making the roads around here, a lot of them being closed while they're clearing it up. Overnight rain released yet more mud. But out on the circuit, it is a brilliant circuit. Things are looking as good as they were before the cars went to the grid this morning, where there's been spit overnight, spit drizzling on the grid, and then suddenly on that second formation lap, down came the rain, and ever since it's been increasing, decreasing. And I must say, we've had a few spins, a few moments, but actually I think they've kept their nose very clean so far. On tyres, they do not know. That cannot be stressed enough. They're getting used to the new Michelin wet weather rubber. We've had other rubber for this series in the past, but it's a learning process. Not in how much tyre grip have you got, how much circuit grip have you got in this circuit. A lot of drivers haven't been here. Tom Coronel made me laugh. 30 years since he was last here. Just the mere 30 years.
And it sounded as though if you didn't quite pick your tyre pressure correctly and you didn't get the tyre in a window, then it really wasn't working for you at all. And there was a lot of chat down in the pit lane during the hour that I was down there that you couldn't get the tyre working. You could see drivers going out and just sliding for no real reason. But if you worked them hard, if you had the pressure in the right window, if you then generated that temperature, then they came to you and were working nicely, and most importantly, seemed to be able to last.
Yeah, and entirely. Actually, one of the interviews that stood out to me was with Ian James from Heart of Racing, because he was saying just basically it was frightening out there. We had the wrong pressures, and the car just didn't want to do what you wanted it to do, so he tumbled down the order. The car started car number 27, great livery there, the sort of 2 shades of blue, the yellow flashes on the side of that Mercedes. It's not like Ian doesn't know a Mercedes AMG, but it was a voyage into the unknown on the wrong tyre pressures, and the car, he knew what it could do, wasn't entirely sure what it could do on the tyres, and then he realised that other people go better. They clearly had more grip, but it's a learning process, and it's due to be raining again tomorrow, so it's essential they pick up all the performance and understanding they can. Hannah Grisham driving the car now, third driver in that cycle, is 7th overall. Gerhard Theresa is just a second or two behind her, nearly 3 seconds down actually, in 8th place in the ARC Bratislava Lamborghini, giving chase, and not too far behind we've got Maxi Partel as well, the Hofer Racing Mercedes. So 3 cars just at the tail end of the top 10, covered by about 5 seconds. That's a little battle to keep an eye out for.
And Heart of Racing almost ignoring the fact that we've had Code 60s and all of the tomfoolery from Race Direction. They have done their strategy. They've each done a big chunky 2-hour, 1.5 hour stint, and then pitted and changed driver. So we've seen Gray, Ian, and now Hannah in the car. They haven't been coming in and out in between times to do half a tank of fuel here or a new set of tyres there. They've just stuck to it very conventionally, and they still sit in a decent position. So it's so hard to really predict how to best treat a Creventic race, because there are all these opportunities. Sometimes they don't seem to actually make much of a difference, oddly.
Yeah, and I think again, Ian was saying, right, okay, we went out, we got it wrong with the tyre pressures. We'll learn, we've got to form. But he wasn't panicking. You know, it's a race split 7 hours today, 5 hours tomorrow. Try and stay on the same lap as your rivals. Then you can close right up when the grid is formed overnight. The cars park on the start-finish straight, get covered up, get unveiled in the morning, and we'll start again. So it's about not losing a lap, and they're learning as they go. Hannah's doing a really good job here, learning the circuit, getting a feel for the place. And for Gray and Ian James,
It's a battle really on the pit wall. It's a strategical, it's a cerebral battle between them today.
it very much is. You might say, oh, the pendulum swung one way. No. Just their chip plans. They both have a lot of experience, Red Camels, Jordan and Mulliner Motorsport, in this form of racing, in this championship, in equivalent championships. And who's got it right? Hard to tell. But I thought that was a really interesting comment from Bartosz Wiedrich there, that it's actually seems more perilous on the track. Now it's drying out a bit. When it was more wet, fully wet, it just seemed easier to attain the balance than you can now, because you're guessing, and it is drying quite fast. There's no sun to dry it out, but it has been brighter in the last 20 minutes, and it has been since the start, or well, since the end of play yesterday after qualifying came to a conclusion just after 6 o'clock in the evening. So back to green flag racing. We are very nearly, in the next minute and a half, at the halfway point of the Saturday running. 7 hours of racing. We're very nearly at 3.5 hours elapsed.
And the battle rages on then between Scuderia Praha for third place and the 44 of ARC Bratislava with their Lamborghini, their first generation Lamborghini Huracan. So they're making the most out of that old paddock. Now, as if to rub salt in the wound for the number 71 Circle K Jutta Audi, basically went into the gravel, caused the code 60, got lifted out, and got so excited, we're out, hey, let's go, hit the power, and went way through the code 60, went over 60 kilometers an hour. That will be a big penalty.
It really was. Again, I had a little pause there, and a little sort of, actually quite a big sigh. It's just one of those things. It's actually completely understandable in terms of saying, I've lost so much time, I must not lose any more, and you press off, you forget. It's supposed to be a 60 kph maximum. So the gravel bed at the first corner has got some more and more interesting tyre marks through it, and I guess the best one so far in terms of the most traction through there was the Gebhardt Porsche Cayman that ran the whole way to the back. Nicholas Gebhardt at the wheel and bounced around on the grass just in front of the tyre balls on the outside. Other tyre marks go in and come to a stationary point from which they had to be rescued. Right, green flag. Can we get through these first 2 laps while they're getting the building up the speed again, getting the heat in the tyres, heat in the brakes? Can everybody behave, or are we going to have another spinner? We've certainly had a flurry of them. It'd be great if we could get to a period of green flag running, let the race settle down. Where are we in terms of who's leading what? Well, it's Sabine De Castro, Italian racer for Manamari, Energy by Ebi Motors, Porsche racer, leading by, get this, 37 seconds from Jörg Dreisau in the Proton Huber competition car. But let's see how Dreisau is in terms of his lap pace. He was losing about 12 seconds a lap when he got passed by the number 95 Porsche from Manamari, but maybe he's gained the knowledge, gained the confidence, and now they're back to full green flag racing. He can press on. Battle for third place is still tough though, isn't it, Peter? Matus Vibo, Scuderia Praha Ferrari, and about 2 seconds behind him, maybe slightly less, is Gerhard Twereza in the ARC Bratislava Lamborghini. Bear in mind, that has always been quicker in this stint than the car it's giving chase. So the battle for third is going to tighten up.
And if the circuit continues to dry, if the rain stays off, then that's really going to help. If we do go code 60 again at some stage, it's going to make it easier to get the tyre back in its window and be able to keep that tyre temperature up. Of course, the drier the road gets, the wet tyre temperature will increase quite significantly, and to the point where it overheats, and then it's time to come in and get slicks. Will we reach that point today? Well, we'll see. You never write anything off sometimes when it comes to the weather. Now, just a quick run through penalties in terms of those still to be served. The 965 MDM Porsche, that's the Coronel car, they still have a 60-second time penalty hanging over them for when Coronel broke the 60-kilometer speed limit coming out of the pit lane. We also have the 111 IRC car that's not respected the minimum sector time during a code 60. They've got 20-second penalty to serve. Again, the MDM car, this is another 6 seconds. So they've got 66 seconds of penalties to serve. Hope they've got a book on board. Car 907, this is the RPM Krone Racing car. They've got 32 seconds of penalties. In fact, I tell a lie, they've just served them. Scratch that. The only one left to be served is another one for the IRC, which is a further 2 seconds for not respecting minimum sector time. So I think they've got their 60 kph speed limiter button just set a little bit too ambitious.
I think it's on the imperial scale, 60 miles an hour. Right, it's getting brighter, or less grey, one could say here. The track is drying out, and some of the drivers still haven't been out in their cars for those crews that are running 4-driver lineup. And maybe, just maybe, when they do get in, they won't even get to experience a wet track, which is what the others have had to experience. A, because it's raining, and the fact they needed to experience it because they're getting accustomed to Michelin's wet weather tyre. Didn't get to try it now. And finally, the battle for second position has just changed because the Lamborghini had fleetingly got up into that position, and the Proton competition car has been passed. And at the same time, the Duta Racing Circle K Audi has had another off-track moment there for Nicolas Michelin, but he drove through the grass, kept going, and now up into second place, Matus Weibo. Basically, the battle for third place has become the battle for second place, and the car that's been deposed is Jörg Dreisau. Erstwhile leader, fell to second, now in short order, went to third, went to fourth.
Jörg Dreisau, all he's got to do, he's got to just get his driver time done safely. Don't get any penalties, anything like that. Just keep the car on the road and let you've got Klaus Barkler waiting in the garage, one of the best GT drivers in the world. There's job to be done as spin for the number 11 Hofer Racing AMG. Now, does it get back going again? It's Alexander Prince. That's a rare mistake for him. They're in 7th at the moment, 2nd in the AM class. In fact, make that 3rd in the AM class. This is at turn 3 and an area where we've seen so many issues. Poggio Secco, you're coming over that little crest and easy to make an error there. Many have spun it around there as through goes. Do they side by side for second position then between Twerarzer and Weibo? This is ARC Bratislava versus Scuderia Praha. Ferrari, they touch coming through turn 3 and side to side contact, and the Bratislava for Lamborghini goes through. Diana Binks down in the pits. What, Diana?
Sorry, I had turned my mic off. I was just to let you know that the 111 Racing, the IRC GTX car, has made its way back out. So they've repaired that car. It stopped at the end by the penalty box section, but it's now gone out and rejoined the track. So they did their best. They said earlier they wanted to see if they could get the car back out, and they've done that. So I think they've probably lost, 45 minutes, something like that.
About that, they'll lose a bit more time because they're back on the track. They can start serving some of the time penalties they've gathered, but I think their job is to get to the end of Saturday running here and see how tomorrow unfurls. It's not another day, but it is another day. Have 5 hours, the 12 of the Mugello 12, and hopefully for the Australian crew they can have clean running. They've had their problems, they've had their delays, they've had the penalties, and now it can settle down.
28 laps they lost, but any issue at all for either of the Vortexes ahead, that could be similar fate for them. So they just got to keep on trucking, keep going. They've got those penalties served and keep on going. Great. This is a great stint so far from the 44 ARC Bratislava car. Gerhard Twerarzer, the 36-year-old Austrian, who was the 2006 Lista Formula A champion. So he's been racing a long time. His experience, class wins in GT World Challenge, GT Open, Super Trofeo, FIA GT. So he's an experienced driver. So this will not be his first rodeo in the wet in this kind of car. Yeah, for those listening in black and white, when you say Lista, that is Lista as in the tool company, the sponsor, L-I-S-T-A, not as in Lista sports cars from the 1950s, L-I-S-T-E-R. Just thought that was worth clarifying. I thought they were office supplies. Is it office supplies? Office design and supplies. It could be. Yes. Actually, I think you're right, because they raced in the States for quite some while, didn't they? Freddie Lienhardt was the driver. Selection of cars. He's running all forms of sports car racing. I think even started in Inter-Series, that peculiar series where you had sports cars and Formula 1 cars with wings over their wheels, covers over their wheels. Right, Jörg Dreisau, he's back into 4th position. He's gradually improving his pace, but he's still north of 10 seconds off the, sorry, as I knock your notes,
off the ultimate pace, but you said, 5-10 minutes ago, what he needs to do is complete his stint, get his driving time done, and that's precisely what he's doing now. Windscreen wiper blazing away, but it's not really raining. I think he could probably flip that off. Yes, he'll get spray if he gets someone overtaking him, but it is drying out now. Di mentioned a short while ago down the pits, a little bit of a breeze coming through. That may help blow the rain clouds away and dry what has fallen. But for a lot of the drivers now, they're just settling into their order. What they haven't enjoyed is code 60, green. You start running again, back down to code 60, tyre temperature drops, brake temperature drops, brain temperature drops. Now, we've had quite a few Ferraris leading this race, and one of them was the CCC Kessel Racing Ferrari. It's down in 5th place at the moment in the hands of Marco Frezza, but it has quite a long way to go. It's almost a minute it needs to gain to catch Jörg Dreisau in 4th. Is lapping faster, has actually close with every lap, but it just shows how that front group of cars has really stretched out. And all the time, Sabine De Castro just doing a really good job at the front of the race. Not the quickest driver out there by a second or two, but consistently on the money in the Mane Mari Energy by IBI Motors Porsche.
And it's certainly the most commentator-friendly car to spot through the gloom at Mugello with that paint scheme on it, for sure. In the 992 category, the 909 of Luke Breukers leads by 8.5 seconds from Julian Hanses for Milner Motorsport. So the intriguing, exciting battle that we saw between these two cars in qualifying in the dry is playing out here in the race conditions in the wet. Luke Breukers with his light blue helmet on. Easy to spot even through the slightly tinted glass there, and he's right behind one of the GT3 Ferraris. In fact, it's the Era Motorsport car driven at the moment by Dwight Merriman. So right now, last time by Merriman at 222 and Red Camo at 221, so they're quite similar in pace, actually. In fact, Milner Motorsport are flying at the moment. They're 4 seconds quicker on the previous lap than Red Camo were, so that gap could come down quite quickly. Also, Ricardo Pera flying with a personal best lap time for that car throughout the whole race, 2:14.186. So there's an early indication that we're starting to get towards the best track conditions we've seen so far, as Luke Breukers is going to try and get past the Ferrari here coming into Buccini. Up the inside he goes. Dwight Merriman gives him plenty of space. Breukers just coming up the inside. They're side by side as they go around. Buccini, of course, the GT3 car have that little bit more grip, and in a straight line there's really not a great deal to tell between them as they go side by side down the start-finish straight as well. Merriman on the outside. Well, actually now it'll be back to Merriman on the inside as they head towards turn 1.
And Dwight Merriman, driver, decided, the American, that he wants to race in Europe this year, gain some experience of the great circuits here, and why not? Variety is important. Right in front of him. Luke Breukers running too deep into the first corner, into San Donato. Not the first, won't be the last, but it's that moment. Have I got grip? I haven't got enough grip, can't turn in. Drives right through the gravel trap, onto the grass in the background, right against the tire wall, onto a little access road, and then rodeo rides onto his circuit, putting all sorts of muck right in the path of one of his rivals.
And that brings Julian Hanses right into the picture. The Red Camo car had a big lead there until just got it just too deep on the brakes there, into the gravel at turn 1, had to loop it around. Did exactly what the Gebhardt GT4 car did a bit earlier on, get it all the way to the grass on the other side, missed the barrier, drive back, and Luke Breukers did a good job to get it back onto terra firma. But the problem is now he looks in the mirror and his nearest rival is right there, Milner Motorsport.
It was 10 seconds difference when they crossed the start-finish line, so that trip through the gravel, back across the grass, the curves, and getting onto the circuit cost the best part of that. It's now almost nose to tail. Down the slope to Savelli they go. Red Camels, Jordan still leading car number 909, top in the 992 Porsche class, and right on his tail. The only other car that's shown really true pace in this class has been the one from Milner Motorsport, and the third driver in that cycle, Julian Hanses, doing a very, very good, tidy job, the sort of job you'd expect from him in that. Good run from Valtters Sviedris, but certainly the start driver, Martin Rump, the Estonian, no wonder Porsche like him, no wonder they keep him on their books, because he has been very impressive. And Milner Motorsport, of course, a lot of experience. You'd have watched them racing in the States for some years now. They had their overseas operation, I think it was based in Florida, DeLand in Florida, I think it is, that they were based at, but...
yeah, they ran LMP3 cars as well. As round goes, Hanses just goes round the outside of Breukers at Corintau as they go through the Biondetti chicane, where normally they're going using all the paint there. So it's, that's showing you that they could have got the grip there that they want to come up towards Buccini, the final corner. Now can Hanses, now that he's got the track position, can he pull away from Luke Breukers here in terms of where they are on their stint? Hanses has been at the wheel for, let me see, he's been at the wheel for 18 minutes. Breukers has been at the wheel for 1 hour and 24. So maybe Hanses just made a little bit fresher, actually, because the mental power required to drive at this speed and this type of condition is so difficult.
Look, in conditions that are mixed, on tyres you still don't know very well. I mean, it's a question of where, not if. You may have a problem. You are really, the permutations are so huge, but the confidence that Julian Hansen showed there, you really don't want to be going right out to the painted lines at the edge of the circuit, because that's where the moisture lies, and then suddenly your quicker lap ain't going to happen. You'll be getting a tank slapper, getting a moment through Poggio Secco, the third corner of the lap. Both the cars challenging for the lead in the 992 Cup class. The Mugello Motorsport entry, and tucked in behind the 909 of Red Camel Jordan of Luke Breukers, running right to the edge of the circuit. These are drivers confident in their cars, Peter.
They are, yes, and these are not easy cars to drive. They do not have traction control. These cars will be fitted with ABS. There's basically an optional extra Bosch system that you can fit to the cars. They don't run them in Carrera Cup Germany or in the Super Cup, but you can in an endurance spec put an ABS kit. In fact, in Carrera Cup North America they do put ABS on them, but no traction control. 500 horsepower rear engine car, of course. It's a unique thing, but the Breukers boys, they love that car. They adore it. They tried a GT3 Audi in Barcelona. They enjoyed it, but they love their Porsche GT3 Cup car.
The category, and of course they've been staunch supporters of the 24H series run by Creventic for a long time, but the one in the team who's least happy this weekend is Father Ivo, who hasn't got to race. He's got a neck brace on at the moment, soft neck brace. Ricardo Berra comes in because he had a little off on an electric bike, and therefore has to be on the sideline this weekend. There's been some very quick laps from the driver who's come in from 16th place in a 992 Cup class, puts it in 4th position overall. But Ricardo Berra, so many years now, in about 3 or 4 years in the World Endurance Championship, did a very, very tidy job there. And you picked out the fact he was almost as fast as the very fastest GT3 runners in that stint.
Yeah, it was some really impressive pace running with Manthey Racing in the World Endurance Championship. So he'll be at Le Mans this year. He's won in the World Endurance Championship, Carrera Cup Italia, ELMS, Asian Le Mans, and won the Italian GT4 Championship back in 2021. So yeah, a driver with real potential for the future for certain. Scuderia Praha, they're of course former winners at this race on 2 occasions. If they could get to the checkered flag tomorrow afternoon, they would equal Herbert on 3 wins apiece. Let's get an update down in the pits with Diana Biggs.
You were just talking about Ricardo Berra, who just jumped out of the number 973 EBI Motors. So he's just had a quick drink. Ricardo, how was that stint out there for you?
Wow, it was very tricky, I have to say. It's very difficult to keep this 992 GT3 Cup on track, especially in these conditions. Very tricky situation with the code 60, as the restart, the tire were so cold, so every time was very difficult. But we managed to, I think, get into P1 again. Now let's see. I mean, it's like a survival race at the moment.
Is that where you sort of think about it a little bit more before you make a move? Are you sort of weighing everything up at the same time?
Yeah, it's very difficult. Now at least it was not so much water on track, so it was pretty easy to follow a car, but before it was very tricky, I have to say. So make a move was not the best out there. You need to be very sure about it, but I managed to have some moves, and let's see now what my mates are doing.
Are you satisfied as to how your race is evolving so far?
Yeah, so the start was not the best. We were like P6. Now we get again into P1 after my 2 stints, I think, 2 hours, more or less 2 hours. So now the other 2 my mates are going to the car. So let's see at the end of the day what's going on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Ciao.
Ricardo Berra for the 973 Ebby Motors Porsche Cup machine. Ebby Motors running 2 cars here. They, of course, they run the car that leads the race right now, the Manimori Energy machine, the full-spec GT3R. And actually, they did have a class win here last year. They ran the Porsche Centre Ticino car, but my memory serves me correctly. So they know how to win here at Mugello.
Yeah, and that's just been taken over from Ricardo Piero into the hands now of Davide Roda. So we'll see how he gets on. Right, people getting on board. These might be drivers having their first stint in the race. Might go, what do you mean I've got to learn about the wet weather tyres? Because they won't be on them now. It's dry weather conditions. Still spray coming off the circuit here at Mugello. We've passed the halfway point in this race. A lot of cars will still be on the wet weather tyres, but I think right now anybody looking at a tyre change will be going, yeah, not actually quite slick weather yet, but it's going that way. However, grab your phone, look at the weather apps. No, actually it's way off. Let's face it, the fastest aggregate of the pole qualifying car was 1:47 at the moment. I know we're stop-start, but only the very quickest will get under 2:10. Scratch that comment about the slick weather tyres. I was looking out the window rather than the lap times achieved.
The other issue is the temperature. The temperature's not there. I mean, it's not just the moisture on the surface, it's the temperature that the tyre works at. And if they're having tyre temperature issues with the wet, it's the you wouldn't even want to know what they feel like, I would imagine. I don't think anybody would want to know. Nobody would be brave enough or silly enough.
But imagine if you had decided, I think that it's going to come to us, but then you're having code 60, they cool down your slick tyres and you're trying to get them going. It take a few laps to get heated. It would be a nightmare. Right, what's happening at the front? Sabino De Castro leading the race by 1:46. Matheus Vibo from the Scuderia Praha Ferrari has just come in to have a pit stop. He's in the refueling area. That's in third place at the moment. That means Marco Frezza, CCC Kestel Racing, should be promoted to third. That means Ian James has been making good progress in his second stint. The Heart of Racing by SPS Mercedes should also go up a position. But right now for AB Motors with the Banamari Energy by AB Motors Porsche, looking very tidy at the front of the race, running good pace. The next car in line is falling down the order. Jörg Dreisau at the wheel. That's the Proton Hooper competition thing. So with every lap, their advantage is growing. Sabino De Castro, car number 95. It's a Porsche. Porsches were nowhere through dry practice, dry qualifying, but as soon as we got the rain falling today, suddenly they're right in the window.
We had a brief yellow flag at turn 3 at Poggio Secco, which has been a hot spot all day long, but it's gone back to green flag clear in that section. I mean, that's quite a quick corner in a GT3 car, 80 miles an hour through there, and you go over a crest. We've seen so many drivers, as they ask for the power, the rear just kick out and go. The marshals at that particular point, I hope they've got a big box of chocolate biscuits to keep them going, because they've been busy.
Certainly, yes. There we wanted the 5 hours today, the 7 tomorrow, but it's 7 hours today, add the 5 tomorrow. And the cars, if you're new to 24H Series race, they don't go to the pits, the pit garage overnight. They get parked in the position, in the order in which they are when the checkered flag falls after today's 7 hours. They stay on the grid overnight and they'll go out and resume tomorrow with 5 hours to go through to the checkered flag. And then we'll see who's on top, not just in the race, but in the various classes through the order. But right now it's Manamari Energy by Ebby Motors. It's a car that's very, very discreet in its race livery. It's black underneath, covered in bright pink, bright blue, bright green, bright yellow splodges of paint. And then you almost lose the red, white and green on the Italian tricolor on the B pillar of the car, because there's so much colour to contemplate. But again, it looks good in the day, it looks good at night.
And they're a team that have been together for so long and have competed in the series for so long. They, for me, one of their standout performances was when they got on the overall podium at the Sebring 24-hour in a 991 spec Cup car, Porsche Cup car. It was quite remarkable. They've had some great giant killing performances. They've won the Middle East Trophy in the past, and they're really, and do you know what, when we go and speak to them on the grid, they're always smiling. That's the biggest thing about it, this Manamori Ebby Motors team. This Porsche, it's interesting, like we said, didn't really have the pace in the dry, but in the wet seems to be going well, and the teams have played the strategy well. It runs as the second heaviest car in the field at 1,300 kilos. The Mercedes AMG is the heaviest in the field. Got 95 litres of fuel to use, but at the fuel stop they get 90% fuel flow. And a yellow flag again now for the 901 Ajith Kumar racing machine, running 8th in class at the moment. Let's see which corner that was, but it's Ajith Kumar at the wheel right now. That looks like it's coming into Materazzi.
Yeah, turn 4, he had a rotation there before, but again, the good thing from his point of view, it loops around, facing the wrong way, went from the black stuff, the red, white and green painted curves, but did not go into the gravel on the other side of that. Briefly kissed the grass when the car rejoined, drove across the circuit to the far side, but gets going all over again. So the Indian actor will live to fight another day in this race, but all the time gaining experience.
And this, in terms of baptism of fire, this it really is. You know, a wet Mugello, track condition changing all the time, interruption of code 60s, everything being thrown at Ajith Kumar here, but he's taking it in his stride along with the Bazkuten team that run this car. Now I think we just had a quick change for second position. The Kessel Racing car making a move past Jörg Dreisau from the Proton Huber competition team. Marco Frezzo, who set some great times in qualifying yesterday in the dry, he's now moved up into second. So it's interesting, we saw Kessel Racing charge away with David Fuminelli on board early on. They've dropped back again, and now they're fighting back to the front. Yeah, and also bear in mind there was that battle for third place that briefly became for second place. The Scuderia Praha Ferrari and the chasing Lamborghini. They both had driver changes, and they've tumbled not out of the top 2 or 3. They've tumbled down to respectively 12th and 13th position. So it's Miroslav Vibo now, having taken over from Matas Vibo into the Scuderia Praha Ferrari, and Miro Konopka, irrepressible ARC Bratislava Lamborghini. And as the MP race matches the grass, because it's on the grass, is off the circuit again, Diana has an update.
The number 56 Ferrari, Matis, has just jumped out of the car. How was that session out there for you?
The beginning was a little bit hard for me because I haven't been driven on wet surface for quite some time. But then I got the grip and I was relatively fast, I would say.
Did that come to you quite quickly?
Oh, it took 5 to 7 laps probably. Yeah.
And how challenging was it?
The conditions have been changing. So at the beginning it has been a little bit dry. Then it started to be wet again. Many code 60s, so the tires had been cold and warm, so it has been quite challenging, but I really enjoyed this stint.
It's quite a solid performance from the team. How important is it to have everyone in the team sort of working together with each other to help each other through races like this?
I mean, it's very important. I'm driving with my father, so it's technically a team of 3 together with our coach, and we are enjoying it as a family thing, so I really like it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think if you were asked to describe 24-hour series in one word, family would definitely be up there in the choices. So many teams running, whether it be father and sons, father and daughter, brothers, you name it. We have them all here in the 24-hour series. I love that about this series because I think it's the dream of any motor racing people who are fanatical about motor racing. I think that would be a dream for any family to go and drive. I'd love to go and do an endurance race with my mum, actually. Yeah, she's the speed freak in our family. You said that she could easily be goaded to drive a little faster, so you try and wind her up in the car. Terrible child. Guilty. But what was she driving? Was it something that was quick in any hands, or just quick? She had a Subaru. She could pedal that. Yeah, she had a Skoda Fabia VRS, one of the first ones. I think that was her favourite, actually. Yeah. How much influence did you have in her choosing her car? Were you badgering and going, come on, get one of these? Well, that's a more complex answer we don't have time for right now. Okay, there we go. Maybe over a beer tonight I'll explain that one. See if we can schedule a beer. Right, almost blue sky in the distance, said the eternal optimist, because certainly it is much brighter than we thought. But when we arrived at the track this morning, there was a little bit of light drizzle, but it looks as though we might get away with almost sunshine towards the end of the race. Or broken cloud. We're getting there now, but bear in mind an hour into the race, or not even that, suddenly looked like it was going to be heavy rain throughout this opening 7 hours, the 12 hours of Mugello. It's looking rather better now. Windscreen wipers still on, particularly if you're chasing another car, but track conditions, you just want to have a constant run now. Whatever the conditions are, it still wouldn't be good enough for slicks. It's still wet weather. What's the fastest lap time we're getting at the moment? 2 minutes 13 from the race leader, almost 2 minutes 14. It's still way off the pace. Yeah, way off the dry pace. Well, we didn't really have a dry start to the race. Way off dry pace for sure. I mean, the fastest lap of the race was set by David Fuminelli, 206.6. That is over 20 seconds off his qualifying time in the dry yesterday. But at the moment, we're nearly 30 seconds off the dry qualifying time. That is really a big gap, really a big gap. Really interesting looking at Ajith Kumar going around, the Indian actor or racer turned actor turned racer again, and well, again the international spread of this. We've got
IBC Tamil Sports covering this live from India. Isn't that really cool, the global spread of motor racing? And you saw it, the Dubai 24 Hours, where he brought his own, not a handful of fans, a legion of fans, and they stayed in the grandstands for hour upon hour, cheering his car every time it went past. You were talking about the sort of massive boost of the global audience. It was enormous, absolutely huge.
We've never seen attention like it, and we're so grateful to all the Indian fans watching, and I know they're all here to watch how Ajith is getting on, and the challenge that he's taking on is massive, you know, and he's taken it in his stride. And what's really struck me about him is when he's walking around the paddock, walking around the catering. Yes, he's a mega star, and yet he's so courteous and polite to everyone. He'll say good morning, good afternoon, how you doing, and smiles to everyone. A proper star in every way, cool. And we're delighted to have him here.
Yeah, cool, calm, collected, charming, but also for a lot of people who followed him simply because they know who he is, this season could be their first season of looking at these fabulous cars racing, multi-class racing, endurance racing, so much to learn. And here we are, deep into this race, and Ajith's in the middle of 3 cars, cornering 3 abreast, going round the final corner on a slippery track. So it's tense, it's exciting, beautifully captured by the cameras, and again, with every lap, gaining experience. And even if he came here on a completely dry or a completely wet track, it's the changing conditions that just forced you to keep on learning. So we hope you're enjoying it in the early evening, or actually probably quite late evening, over in India on Tamil TV. Good to have you.
And then stay with us for the whole season, because Ajith is on a European adventure all season, going to Spa, to Paul Ricard, Misano, Barcelona. He's going to be here enjoying it all year, and we're delighted to bring you the coverage on Tamil Sports. Just over 3 hours to go then until we take our intervention break, as it's called, and then we go back to racing for the final 5 hours tomorrow. And the idea is stay on the lead lap in your class, get to the end. The one thing to bear in mind though is that for the final 10 minutes the pits close. So you have to, if you want to top up before, you have to get it done before that 10 minutes.
Yeah, and don't come in with just 12 minutes to go, because that means there may be someone else at the pumps and you don't get your turn. Does that mean a little sound from the pits, perhaps? Is that you, Di? No, microphone check perhaps
no.
Down there, or maybe the buffeting of the wind, because we did hear Di say the wind was picking up, and in some ways I think that's helped dry the circuits out a bit. Still waiting to see. Quite a few drivers are only just into their stint. We mentioned ARC Bratislava with their Lamborghini. They're only, under 10 minutes into their stint. Likewise, the Scuderia Praha Ferrari with Miroslav Vibo on board. But quite a few of the others at the front end of the field, the cars that could be setting quick lap times, are getting towards the end of their stint. They're getting towards the 1 hour mark. You can go a bit longer than that, but I expect the quick times to come when they get a fresh set of rubber in the next quarter of an hour or so and go back out onto the circuit. But right now, the best lap last time around, 2 minutes 12. Car in second place. It's Marco Frezza, the CCC Kessel Racing Ferrari, giving chase, but some distance down on the race leading Manamari by Ebi Motors Porsche. That's leading the way.
Yeah, it's interesting now, the track seems to have hit a kind of plateau in terms of speed. You would expect it, given the rain's eased off, you would expect it to keep drying with the cars going round under green flag conditions, but hasn't quite done that so far. Well, as we reach the top of another racing hour, it's 3 hours to go here for this first portion of the Michelin 12 Hours of Mugello. Let's take a rundown of how our teams and drivers look with 8 hours left in total of this edition of the Mugello 12 Hours. In the lead at the moment is the number 95 Manamori Energy Porsche of Fabrizio Broggi, Sabino De Castro and Sergio Nicolai. They're being chased though by the Kessel Racing Ferrari, the number 8 machine, with the third placed Porsche for Proton Hubert competition just a further 25 seconds further back. In fourth, it's the Heart of Racing, who started on the front row of the grid with their Mercedes. It's Ian James, Gray Newell and Hannah Gresham taking on driving duties for them. With the top 5, in fact, Crawford Racing, they just crept their way forward throughout the day. They qualified in 12th, They're up to 5th and very competitive indeed in the AM class. In 6th, it's the Continental Racing by Simpson Audi, number 69. Then in 7th, it's the Red Ant Racing Team, formerly 992 champions last year. They've made the step up to the full spec GT3 and they've chosen a Mercedes AMG. They sit in 7th. They fought a little bit of gear shifting issues earlier on, but they've managed to get on top of that, and it's the car is running smoothly again. Number 71, Circle K Jutta Audi, sits in 8th. Then it's the first of our 992 class cars sitting in 9th overall. Quite impressive for that crew. And then rounding out the top 10, it's Pellin Racing, number 29, with Kyle Marcelli, Felicia Gelmini, and Lisa Clark, who's at the wheel at this exact moment. Sitting in 11th overall is, and second in class, is the 909 Red Camel Jordan's car of Luke and Rick Breukers alongside Fabian Dance. 12th is the ARC Bratislava Lamborghini. 13th overall, 56 Scuderia Praha Ferrari. But both those two cars I've just mentioned have not long had a pit stop and have come into fueling, so they've a little bit behind the score right now, but they will filter back forward. Aero Motorsport have had great pace at points, but a couple of big penalties have hurt them. They're in 14th overall right now. Leading in the 992 AM class, it's RPM Racing, Tracy Crow, Nick Jonsson and Philip Hamprecht. A crew that had to start from the back of the grid, the 902 Holmgard crew, they're climbing slowly up the field. They're up to 16th now, just ahead of the GTX leaders, the brothers, Arnaud and Olivier Gomez, with their beautiful creation, the Vortex 2.0. Then it's Porsche Baltic, car 992 in 18th. The MDM 965 Porsche, again, have been very quick in wet conditions, but again have picked up a couple of penalties. They sit 19th overall. And rounding out the top 20, it's the Ebby Motors Porsche 992 class machine, car 973. In 21st overall at the moment, it's the Gosners in their MP Motorsport Mercedes, followed by the 901 Ajith Kumar Racing machine with Ajith Kumar on board at the moment. The 888 Seb Lejeune car is in 23rd overall. They've had a eventful day so far, but they'll fight on. Then leading in GT4, it's the all-Italian driver crew in the very British Lotus Emira. They lead in GT4. Then it's the 949 Porsche Cup machine, Scuderia Farron, and now the second place GT4 car, 26 overall, it's Venture Engineering with their 421 Mercedes. Nick and Jim Gephardt sit 3rd in GT4 and 27th overall, just ahead of the GTX Vortex number 701. Then it's the 928 HRT Porsche with Titarenko and Denisov. Unfortunately, still in the pits for the number 90 E2P Racing Aston Martin. Something not right at all there, sadly, with their debut with that beautiful British machine. Then it's the 111 IRC GT, which had a pretty lengthy delay in the pits, but it's back out running again. Unfortunately, a non-start for the number 23 Pellin Racing Ferrari. That is your 32-car rundown. And, well, there have been many highlights so far, a few lowlights across the opening 4 hours. Let's have a little summarisation of them now. So, with 4 hours and 6 minutes down, 2 hours and 53 minutes remaining in the low 12 hours. And oh no, terrible news for the Lotus fans. PB Racing are in to the pits. They've had to go into the garage. There's something wrong with the Emira GT4.
Well, about 3 minutes ago, there's a message saying a car had stopped at pit entry. Couldn't see which it was, and I maybe am not Inspector Clouseau. It could well be this Lotus. They may have then managed to just get it pushed into, you know, away from blocking the pit entry and get it down there. It could have been someone else, but I would suggest that the money is on this being the car with the problem. It's such a shame. It's a fantastic looking car, the Emira, and we heard from Stefano D'Aste early just eulogising about they've run Lotuses for years, but this is new to them. They can be racing this across Europe. Yes, indeed, it was their car that stops at the pit in. It's neat, it's pretty, it sounds fantastic. But for now, it's got a problem and is falling down the order into the bottom position in GT4. But I'm sure there's plenty more to come. Fingers crossed they can get it out, not only just for the rest of today, but for tomorrow as well.
We talked about it at the early part of the show, that the GT4 is more of a battle of attrition. It's a reliability battle in many ways. We see it so often here in the 24-hour series. It's, no matter what the package is, it's not manufacturer specific. It's about getting the running without technical issues. And if you do have a technical issue, being able to repair it quickly. Ben Constanduros, I'm sure, will be down there. He'll have a report for us in a minute, I'm sure. But all of the crew, they're pouring into the cabin. Driver's still aboard. They've also got the rear cover off, and some of the faces in the paddock, the longest faces in Mugello right now, and just from the lead of the race, from the lead of the category. I mean, particularly Alberto Nasca, who was in. So, you know, he was just beaming with joy after his qualifying run with Diana yesterday, and he could not look more of the opposite right now. So disappointed. Let's get down to Ben and get some more.
Watching this came in whilst the highlights were playing and wheeled into the garage backwards. They initially had fuel bowser out, potentially suggesting that there was an issue with fuel flow, but that was soon put away. The laptop was plugged in, as you tend to do as par course, to diagnose an issue. Now the electric meter is being plugged into various systems behind Stefano's seat. It's Stefano D'Aste in the car, the team owner, of course, as well as the primary driver. So this has gone away from being a mechanical and more of a electrical fault. But just trying to overhear what's being said, because there's mainly Italian. But there is some English being spoken, and I think they're saying water pump. That is what they're reporting, which is such a shame. As you say, these GT4 cars don't tend to be designed to do big, long endurance races. They are primarily made for the kind of 1 hour races that we see through SRO, which own the rights to the GT4 regulations. And whether it be in national championships or indeed the European Championship, that's kind of the length of the race for them. So to put them through these 24-hour races is a lot more than they are used to. It's probably something they can fix here down at PB, and they will want to gain that advantage. But Stefano's getting out the car, I'm afraid.
Thanks for that. Yes, I saw the mechanics there with the voltmeter, but you know the big problem is it's also the Emira is only in its second season of racing, and you know, very few cars from the manufacturers, whether it's GT3, GT4, hit the ground running. You know, you hope the ingredients are right, but there's so much to learn. And again, it is about the fragility of the moving parts. But when it becomes electrical, you want something in the old school you'd have hit with a hammer, but you can't.
Well, that might be the case, as Stefano D'Aste actually getting out the car now with the open-faced helmet there. That's just a bit of disappointment. And the thing is, you're absolutely right, Bruce. It is with the new package difficult, but we've seen again lots of times in 24-hour series very established packages in GT4 having technical problems, and it's, you know, so if you can run clean, it's you got a good chance of winning that category. It's just the way that it's worked. And Ben's right. In general, the cars are ready for. They are ready for that kind of 1 hour sprint race. We're getting word from Ben in our ears that it is indeed a fuel pump problem now.
And again, when that's been established, they have to become accustomed to how to change a fuel pump as fast as possible. You know, experience doesn't come overnight. it's something you've got to work away at. And we were talking when we arrived at the circuit on Friday about how we looked at some of the rear end sections for the 296 Ferrari stored in position. Was it outside Era Motorsport, or was it? No, it was one of the other teams, Penn Racing, I think, further along. In fact, you can see on their car there's blue and orange at the front but a black tail end, so they've clearly opted for another bit. But it went back to the sort of the unitary construction that Audi in particular championed at Le Mans about 20 years ago. Don't just fiddle around with a bit, take the whole thing off, put a whole new unit on. And they even had for every element, right, fuel pump, what do we need to change? They'd have a set of tools specifically in a drawer ready for that, rather than having to go to a toolbox and gather those. It seems very simplistic, but from a long way back, teams have been working out how they can save, you know, not just seconds, almost nanoseconds when it comes to mechanical maladies. Get them fixed efficiently and as fast as possible. And for people running the Lotus Emira in GT4, there's still a lot to learn. But as we did hear from Stefano D'Asta, he was extolling the base virtues of that car. So it's a good starting point. A car that handles well, is quick. Lotus, a little bit fragile to start with in the early days of Emira, but let's hope they can sort all those problems. Right, up the front of the race, it's now 2 minutes 10. It's almost precisely a lap between Sabino De Castro, leading in the Manamari Energy by AB Motors Porsche, and the chasing CCC Kessel Racing Ferrari, and they're lapping at near identical pace as well, so no real gain, but a lap between first and second. So the 95 Porsche from Manamari ahead of the Kessel Racing Ferrari. That's kind of brave, but Kessel Racing car has just had to go past a gaggle of cars in other classes, and that will have cost him a bit of time.
Just seen Lisa Clark come into the pits in the former race leading number 29 Pelin racing car. Just done over an hour of drive time, which means that she's got, that will be 1 more hour to do between now and the checkered flag tomorrow. So done her job, got the car back clean, no mistakes, no penalties. That's what it's all about. Each one of these crews will have non-professional drivers that they've got to cycle through and get that driver time done. That's all part of the strategy and how you put it all together. That issue for PB Racing with that Lotus, that GT4 was very, very tight prior to that issue. Now Venture Engineering with their top driver on board, Matthew George, lead by 47 seconds from CCS Racing and Nick Gebhardt.
Yeah, I don't know if you've been going through the driver cycle at Venture, but it certainly started by Matthew George, and he pulled clear in the class, started third in the class, pulled clear. Matthew Higgins went in next, but I don't think we've had either Christopher Jones or Neville Jones have their running as yet. Still plenty more time to go, but very good point there that Lisa Clark was effectively knowing she's going to do, she had 2 hours to do across the 12, but doing one today, one tomorrow. But the big question was looking at the weather forecast constantly as it changed. Do you want her in when it's full wet? Probably not. So they had to guess, and the weather was changing all the time. And in fact, most of this star has been relatively dry. Haven't been actually too many code 60 periods either, but I think they chose very well. But whether that was their plan ahead of the race, or I think they have to do it all on the move, all on the sly, all on the hop, and just react to situations as they come your way. But I think they timed it very well, Pelin Racing, for the Californian racer. That's
a really tricky conundrum, isn't it? Because they also they don't want to drop an extra lap before we shut off tonight. If they've got a good bit of gap behind them, then they might try and use that driver time up. But of course, Lisa Clark's a Ferrari Challenge racer. She'll come to the Ferrari Challenge World Finals, and an hour stint is a pretty good, as you say, training run for a Ferrari Challenge race. You know, I know they're slightly shorter than that, but in general, it's a really good marker of how to handle that challenge.
Yeah, we heard from Carl Marcelli, teammate and coach as well, that they did a round together in the Italian GT series last year. Of course, they have the Sprint Championship and the Endurance Championship for Italian GT, but it was learning a circuit, you know, coming to the home of Ferrari, and I'm sure coming to a circuit owned by a Ferrari. This one, Mugello circuit, is another thrill for Lisa, as she has her Ferrari racing sort of odyssey as she picks her way around the world.
Like the Ferrari road cars too.
Yes,
of course.
They've named. Oh God, should we go to the dog conversation?
Let's go to the dog conversation.
Okay, what's her dog called, Peter?
Enzo. Enzo raced at the old Mugello, actually. That's Enzo the man, not Enzo the dog. Ben Consanduros.
Yeah, thank you very much, Peter. It's fresh out of the car after an hour stint, Lisa. High fives all round here in the pits.
What was that?
High fives all round here. Good energy from your team.
Yeah, no, my team's very supportive of me. You know, I'm the bronze, the slow bronze, so they're trying to keep me, happy and supported in the car. So great team to be with.
And how was your experience out there? Because this has been the trickiest of days.
Yeah, it's really a lot of mixed emotions because of the rain, then no rain, then semi-dry track, then wet. So you're kind of constantly tossing and turning on which direction to push,
And how much help was Kyle on the radio to you? We saw him in here quite a lot on talking. What is it kind of things he's saying to you?
Yeah, Kyle's like my Zen coach. He brings me down, to where when I'm like, rah, he just kind of, okay, Lisa, harder brake, tighter apex. His voice is very soothing for me. So no matter what he says, it's just that soothingness that kind of pulls me back together.
I'll tell you, I don't think this was your responsibility, but the back end of the car has changed colour since the last time I was in the pits. What happened?
Yeah, that was my decision, I guess, apparently, or the car's decision. We weren't really sure, actually. I went out on new tires. They were heated, and for some reason, I was barely on the throttle, but I had some rear tire spin going into one of the chicanes, and the car just slowly snapped on me, and away it went, yeah.
So a little bit of damage, so they swapped out the rear end.
Yeah, they managed to get it fixed. They're awesome. It just messed up my paint scheme, but other than that, I'm glad I could be here today and we could race.
You've done a great job. Well done.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you.
Lovely to hear from Lisa Clark there. And again, we were talking about that rear end of the Ferrari, how you can take it, you can just clip the old one off, put the new one on, and a great insight to just how easy it is to just, you think you're okay, and then you just step over the mark. The conditions and perfect, just as we talk about that, Red Ant Racing have backed it into the gravel. So easy to just step over the edge. The drivers have been on a knife edge all day long. This is at turn 1.
That's the first flying lap for Kobe de Broeke, who's the last driver in that cycle of 4 drivers to get in the car.
New tyres.
New tyres, just, whatever you were told by other people in previous stints, they've had different weather conditions, different track conditions. So for young Dutch racer Kobe de Broeke, that's a big disappointment. Hopefully that can come out without causing a foot. No, that's properly bogged down. And I'm afraid we're going to go code 60 again. In 20 seconds, it's coming our way. The first corner, San Donato, has been one of the points on the circuit. Turn 6 as well, the downhill. Savelli has also been a point in which drivers have spun. But in fact, I think the prize for being the most deeply embedded has now been taken by Kobe de Broeke there. Car sitting wedged rear end deep, particularly on the left-hand side of the car. No, actually both sides of the car. That's a classic case of going in backwards, because you can see the diffuser has been filled from the rear with the gravel as that Mercedes. Lovely looking car, and it's deep blue with red flashes, sitting in the gravel at turn 1.
It almost comes up to the centre lock of the wheel.
Correct.
In fact, the marshals are having to sort of palm the gravel out of the way to try and clear away everything. They'll use the roof hooks to allow the lifting device to come in and pull out the Red Ant Racing Mercedes.
So I think, actually, for Kobe de Broeke's point of view, hadn't even done a flying lap. I think that was down to San Donato and round it went, because when I quickly looked at the screen, it said his stint length was 30 seconds. He'd already been beat for about 15, so... Oh, well, it's all chalk it up to experience. I must say the Manitou crew down at San Donato have been very quick there. If you could leave that half ton of gravel in the gravel bed, that would be good. So other cars coming in under code 60, including Ajith Kumar. We've just been talking about him. He's going to the refueling bay, where the cars turn in, and just before pit in, they have to double back on themselves with a very tight right-hander, then a left 90-degree bend, and they get to the refueling area. And importantly, if you're the first ones in, you shouldn't have to queue for a pump. And Ajith looks so he's got the timing spot on. He'll come to a standstill. They're not the sort of refueling rigs you'd find in Formula 1 and things where it happens super fast. They're regular, grip pumps as you use at your local fueling station. What you have to hope is your mechanics are down there ready by a pump to flag you in.
Now, in terms of driving time, that's been a really long stint there for Ajith Kumar. In fact, 1 hour and 41 minutes. That is an Ironman stint there. And the thing is, yes, the physical load is less in the wet, but the mental load is 3 times as much to keep the car on the straight and narrow. Now, if my memory serves, that'll be nearly all of his minimum driver time done. 2 hours minimum for RAM drivers in most cases. So that should mean that Ajith Kumar Racing can then put in back into the car guys like Mathieu Detri and Fabien Defoe have been really, really strong. Yes, it is. It's a minimum 2 hour driver time that they've got to adhere to.
I think whatever the initial plan was, as I said, with the changing conditions, they're thinking on the move, thinking on the hoof, and I reckon they thought these are almost the most constant weather conditions we've had. Just stay out. Can you stay out and do a double stint? And you know, it's not because the conditions were changing almost by the lap for the first two hours or so. But here we are. Under 3 hours to go in the Saturday running here at Mugello, and driver out, so it'll be either Detri who started the car or Defoe hopping on board. Ajith's out, but he's almost got all his running done. He'll have some more, well, maybe later today, but I would think he'll be there for the Sunday race, and he looks pretty happy with himself. Good stint.
Yeah, great team spirit there. Fabien Defoe there to give the congratulations, and how you support one another in an endurance racing environment is vital, absolutely vital. Everyone has to be supported as much as possible, and yeah, debrief going on between the two of them.
But you know, whether you're a seasoned pro or someone who's got fewer racing miles on the clock, you'll be chock full of adrenaline when you get out, but it dissipates so quickly, and you will sit down and just every part of your body will just go, you just realize how tense you've been, as much as you try not to. You know, even a stint of that length in fully dry conditions, fully constant conditions would be a strain, but it's the mental strain as much as anything. Always having to feel as though you're on the tips of your toes as you try and gain, you know, what understanding of what grip is out there.
So it's Mathieu Detri now aboard that number 901 Ajith Kumar Racing machine with that white, red and orange paint scheme. I tell you, you replace that white for silver and it's a Tunnix caramel wafer car.
We are getting to about tea time in the British afternoon time there, but
I think that it's caramel wafer time, I think, with a cup of tea. We're both looking at Diana Biggs, I don't know why, but
well, she might have had a supply of Tunnix tea
she might have
in the bag.
She might tea cakes are, well, it's more the white caramel wafer actually.
Is it?
Colour.
You feel?
Yeah,
okay.
nice, yeah.
Well, let's wait and see. I haven't seen the teams offering them to their drivers, so maybe there are none available in this part of Italy.
Well, you couldn't get a better brand ambassador than that, could you? Imagine that. This is what motorsport's about, making connections.
Absolutely.
Anyway, we're just throwing it out there.
Well, you know what? Conditions, if you just happen to join us, having skipped the first 4.5 hours this race, you might go, oh, the track looks a little slippery, but nice spring day, a little grey, whatever. But we've had some rain here, trust me. We've had rain on the Saturday at Mugello, while Northern Europe seems to be having a sort of like spring-like weather, 20 degrees or so. Down here, a week after huge rainfall, a lot that up on your screen, suddenly there was this strong, vibrant, multicoloured thing. I thought it was the Heavy Motors Porsche to start with, our race leader, but it was an array of very bright colours showing the intensity of the storm that is somewhere in the vicinity. But very good point. When you're in the mountains, it can come close and sail past, or it can come and fill your valley. Which one of those it's going to be? I don't think anything. I'm not going to guess, actually, frankly.
Who would want to be the weatherman? That's for sure. Or the meteorologist, maybe a more accurate term. Is the number 8 Ray-Ban backed Kessel Ferrari pushes on with Alessandro Cotrera. They've been getting his driver time well and truly done. In fact, he probably will be, once this fuel tank is done, I would think his driver time will be done as an AMP driver. Yes, it will. He has to do, so along with LMDV and Marco Tallarico, between the three of them, they've got to do a minimum 6 hours. So yeah, split it up 2 hours. 2 hours each, and in fact, if he does a bit more than that, then that means the others have to do slightly less. So it's at the moment they're getting that out of the way, and they've saved quite a bit of David Fuminelli time for tomorrow. Yeah, he's only been in the car once.
Tallarico, I think, got dropped from the driver lineup. They had 5 drivers, and I think I've got the latest entry list, and I think he's stood down for this event. He was on the initial one. Now, lovely touch. Creventic, that organises the 24H Series race. We've watched them develop over the years, and one of their absolute standout points is they think about the teams at all time, how to make the experience better. We're in Italy. It may not look like Italian weather, but it does rain and be grey from time to time, but like every year, says Peter Fry, we have pizzas for the team, so we start at box 19, I believe. So they work their way up the pit lane, and I remember doing an event with them on their home patch in Zambia, meatballs and a dipping sauce, and I tell you, when you get into darkness, exactly, you know, to pick up the crew, and they were going around in the longer races serving hot chocolate. You know, when your mechanics in particular are sitting uncomfortably in the pit lane, something like that powers them on for the next few hours. It doesn't cost a fortune, but it makes the world of difference. Later this year, there's a visit to Paul Ricard. I remember many years ago, it was hyper hot there, and they went to put little paddling pools for every single team, so the drivers or the crew could go and cool down when they came out of a pit stop.
Brilliant idea. They do that at the Suzuki 8-hour motorcycle races. Oh, issue.
A potential problem for Mulner Motorsport. It just was, there was smoke or something coming out of the back of the car, and it then ran wide at the next corner. Let's see, round the final corner and continuing. Don't know what the problem was. I just suddenly looked from a timing screen to the moving monitor, and maybe there's nothing untoward. Maybe it just simply ran wide out of that very tricky chicane, the Biondetti chicane. I can vouch for that being tricky. We won't go there.
Yeah, very interesting. As it comes down into San Donato, turn 1 now for Julian Hanses. This is the leading car in the 992 category. Julian's done a great job all weekend. Of course, former podium finisher in the Carrera Cup Germany, and if you can get on the podium amongst that crowd of drivers, you are seriously handy in that type of car. At the moment, they're running in 7th overall right now. That's amazing.
Well, it owes us a pit stop. It's an hour. He's an hour and 20, an hour and 21 into this stint, so he's coming towards the end of it. But it was just, you know, when you suddenly see a car, he's running off line there, but that's just because he's trying to make the shortest line. I'm not sure if he's got a slow puncture or something, but his lap pace last time was perfectly good, 2 minutes 13.
That would be a real pity if that's the case. I mean, his time through sector 1 is 31.9 seconds. Rick Broikers, that's a good benchmark, 31.4. So he's back on. Yeah, he's in the ballpark anyway.
I think what's happened, he possibly just had a little bit of a messy exit from the Arrabbiata, not the Arrabbiata, the Biondetti chicane, and therefore his tyres suddenly got wet again over the curbing, and therefore he wasn't quite on the line when he got to the final corner to Buccin. But actually his lap pace is looking good all over again.
So this is what I love about the 24-hour series, is how you can keep pace in hand, or you can keep your fast drivers in hand, or you use them up early and hope that the strategy works out. There's so many different solutions to the question, and Kessel Racing, you know, David Fuminelli is clearly their quickest driver. He's only done 48 minutes of driver time so far in this race at all, and he has a maximum of 4 hours that they can use him for. So they can just chuck him in for most of the day tomorrow. In fact, they might even put him in before the end of today's portion, just to get them back in the conversation a little bit. But so Kessel Racing, yes, you might think, oh, at the moment they're a little bit behind. They're just on the lead lap and no more, you know, but as soon as they put their top driver in, the pace changes quite dramatically.
Yeah, again, counting backwards from the end of the 7 hours. We're nowhere near that yet, but 2 hours left on the clock, or thereabouts. The race will end at 6 o'clock local time today. The cars will be parked on the grid. Haven't looked too much at GT4 for a while, and Venture, British team with the Mercedes, were entered for this race. And before this race, the news came through they're doing the entire season, and what a way they're starting it, leading the GT4 class. Matthew George at the wheel, still waiting for the Joneses, Christopher and Neville, to have their runs in the car, but certainly the lion's share being done by Matthew, and he's looking quite...
Yeah, he's a minute 22 to the good at the moment on a very similar strategy to the CCS Racing Porsche, but of course that's the same lap. This is crucial, because if Venture really need, right now, I think they've got to try and put CCS Porsche a lap down. That's what they're aiming at the moment, so that they start tomorrow with that lap advantage, because they can have a minute and 40 advantage, but that's not a lap, so that gets completely wiped out if they don't have that lap advantage. It's as good as nothing. So that might be what they're now working towards, is trying to put the CCS Porsche, the car that is working to get, that is racing against them now, because the Lotus unfortunately is still in the pits. They'll really be aiming for that in the next 2 hours and 8 minutes.
So Ben, busy down in the pits. What have you got for us?
Not too busy generally in the pits, to be fair, at the moment, but the Proton Uber competition Porsche is back from the toe-in that it's had around the back of the circuit, and being able to observe the damage a little bit closer from the mechanics, I would say this car could be out pretty quickly, to be honest. The front bumper is damaged and it has lost a front left wheel arch. They're about to take that front wheel off to see if there's much damage to the suspension and steering arms. But the main kind of bent area is the rear left. That's obviously taken the brunt of the impact into the concrete wall, and that is definitely bent. But moreover is not rotating, and there's a bit of a struggle to get that wheel off. Once that's off, I imagine that there's a couple of pieces to be replaced in there, and as long as there's not too much of an impact through the drive shafts into the gearbox, then fundamentally this car could be ready to go back out if they choose to do so. I'm not going to have a chance to speak to the driver. Very, very upset with himself, clearly, as they were in a really good position to take a very good result here. But ultimately, there's a bit of carbon fibre to be replaced. There's certainly at least one corner to be replaced, but other than that, not too bad.
Thanks very much, Ben. And often you see a racing car when it's at the side of the circuit and it looks really broken, but the way they're modular and the way that a lot of the parts just do their role, they absorb the energy. But the fact a lump hammer is being used to try and sort the left rear corner, suggesting that wheel's not coming off so they can inspect all that's behind it. And this is where ingenuity as well as a bit of brute force is required. And it's so painful when you see something that's not necessarily a big problem, but the fact they can't remove an element like the wheel to get to it is just so galling.
It looks seized.
It does look seized.
So the out comes the hammer. Well, for those watching with endurance racing bingos, we've had yellows breed yellows. Lump hammer, if you had that one, tick it off. Bashing away at what is a very expensive wheel, I'm sure, with the hammer. But it's seized solid. It's not moving. Oh no, what a shame for Proton Huber competition. They were in such a strong place. And Jörg Greiser, he was 95% there with that stint. He'd done everything right. It will have been, we didn't get a replay of it, but it will be the smallest error.
It will, and it could very well have even been his in-lap. And, you know, sometimes, and I know this full well, that you can just take your eye off the ball a little bit. You're not going to 100%. You're thinking about just make a nice, clean exit and get it into the pit lane tidily. And then changing track conditions, maybe just not quite hitting it. And that is where the problem starts. By the way, if you wanted to know how many pizzas are going to be delivered by Creventic, I'm told the figure is 80. What do you want on yours?
I'm just a margarita man, actually.
Oh, yeah, very good.
I like to take big risks in life, Bruce.
Margarita, nothing too spicy.
Yeah, no, a good margarita pizza. If it's a good pizza,
no, I
it doesn't
agree,
need any more than that. You just don't need to reinvent the wheel. Well, the lump hammering has not done the job. So Proton Huber competition trying another method to try and free this rear left wheel, and this must be so frustrating. And yeah, put yourself in your dry sauce shoes. You'd be sick, absolutely sick, and it's just so easy to do. That's just why motor racing, it's the agony and ecstasy, particularly of endurance racing. There's such a long race that if it goes well, the elation is huge. But if it goes wrong late in the piece, it's just agonising.
And look, well, not so much now, but 20 years ago when the cars were far more fragile and they weren't literally flat out from start to finish at Le Mans, it was the sigh of relief. We got to the finish, and most teams wouldn't have revealed that they'd been nursing a problem for many hours and driving around things that didn't work. Look at Jaguar's first modern era victory in 1988. What people didn't know was that Jan Lammers had the car, wouldn't go below third gear, so trying to get it out after the final pit stop, but somehow the Dutch magician made it work. But, you know, from the outside, you couldn't tell how close it was. And think just a handful of years ago with poor Toyota with a lap and a quarter to go. Their first potential victory in the race, and it was snatched away from them. How hideous must that have been?
There's so many examples of it, isn't there? I mean, Paul Newman would have been a Le Mans winner in 1979. They had a seized wheel, didn't they? Late on in the race in the Hawaiian Tropic Porsche 935, and the Whittingtons went on to win.
Look, Mario Andretti never won the big race. Coulda, shoulda, didn't though. But it's down to small things. But the good news now, and particularly in this amazing era of sports car racing with the manufacturers really coming to play, is that the cars are just so much more robust than they were before. Of course, this year we've got Aston Martin racing with the Valkyrie coming on board, but they're behind the curveball. You're not likely to win in your first year. The problems will come your way in year one. They'll come your way in year two, but they will get there. But they do win a prize already. Best sounding car on the circuit with the V12 engine. You heard it at Sebring, and just quite special. No, very special.
Yeah, and had a strong run at Sebring. I mean, for a brand new car, it was impressive. And they did a 24-hour test on Tuesday after the race, so they're definitely putting in the miles. I mean, that's what Audi used to do after the Sebring 12 hours to prepare for Le Mans. They did the Sebring 12-hour and a 24-hour test, or sometimes even 36-hour test at Sebring to really put the car through its paces. Aero Motorsport, they were running up towards the front end, and unfortunately that 60-second penalty for overtaking under code 60 really punished them a lot. They're in 8th at the moment. Kyle Tilley at the wheel. Their next car up the road is only 7 seconds up the road, and actually that's a 992 class car. That's the leader in 992, Julian Hanses for Milner Motorsport. Then it's another Ferrari about a further 8 seconds up the road. So if Kyle Tilley want to be getting his head down here and try and drag Aero Motorsport back up towards the front. Yeah, he's doing a decent job. I'd suggest that Julian Hanses, leading the 992 Cup class, is about to pit somewhere soon. He's best part of an hour and a half. He's over an hour and a half into his stint. The 992 Cup class cars can run longer, of course, than the GT3s, but also longer than you'd think, simply because they've had a fair degree of code 60s, slower running, less petrol burnt for all the runners and their abated pace. But Aero Motorsport, yeah, they'll be ruining that penalty, doing their best to make sure they don't fall another lap down. At the moment, they've got 107 laps on the board. The race-leading car, 110. You can do the maths yourself on that one. They're not where they want to be. So the pizzas are making their way to the garages. Big delivery from the local pizza shop. I bet they're doing a good trade today as the mechanics, the hard-working mechanics at PB Racing, they've got their Lotus back out going again. They have, because there's only one in the garage. There's a spare one in the background. I think they've definitely deserved the first pizza delivery. Also MP Motorsport, the Gosner family watching away there just go, yes, pizza, definitely, why not? There's always time for pizza. Driver saying, I'm coming in now. No, you're not. Stay out. Give us 5 minutes. And Thomas Gosner, Father Thomas, he's just gone, yeah, margarita for me. Thank you very much. Fantastic. I love it. God, I really feel for, when you get someone serving you in a restaurant, you've got 6 people, and just trying to work out whose pizza is who. Imagine a whole pit lane. Unless they say you can have any colour you like in the Henry Ford style as long as it's margarita. As long as it's There's only one choice, really. It's margarita pizza. That's what the drivers need. That's what the mechanics need. Power on with pizza here in Mugello. The PB Racing team. Now, if anyone's earned a pizza, it's them having to change a fuel pump. They've got 2, so only 1 for MP Motorsport. PB have got 2. Don't worry about it. Move that timing computer. The more important things arriving. Get the pizzas on. Yeah, then Manamori by Energy by AB Motors. I suggest the mechanic with the lump hammer gets one to himself when he's finished his crashing and bashing, and I just hope he can get that left rear wheel removed from the car. The Porsche that was leading the race was falling down a little bit, but it was very near to the end of Jörg Dreisau's their bronze driver's stint. Proton Huber. What did I say? Oh, Manamuri. I've gone mad. They're leading the race. I know. Don't exactly panic. What I'm not talking about. So yes, Proton Huber with their Porsche, and these things happen. Really, really unfortunate. Although both with paint schemes that kind of look like Austin Powers curtains. Psychedelic. Yeah, full on. Into the final 2 hours of this portion of the Michelin 12 hours of Mugello. It is Manamuri Energy by AB Motors who lead with their Porsche. Sergio Nicolai on board with Alessandro Cotrera for Kessel Racing in second. Gray Newell for Heart of Racing is correct his way up there in third. So they had a difficult start to the race. Ian James said it was one of the scariest stints of his life. Didn't quite get the tyre pressures right for the Michelin wets. Now they're into their groove, and we know how quick those Mercedes are, especially in AM-class tribulation now, because Julian Hanses is getting towards that 2 hour maximum. But as I say that, Gray Newell's just set the best lap of the race for the for their best lap of the race for Heart of Racing. Likewise, Hoffer Racing for Max Bartel, who's very close to the absolute best lap of the race. Personal best also for Kyle Tilley for that best for that car. Likewise, Arunas Gukuskas and Juta, MDM, Tom Coronel, Stefan Perrin, also Nick Gephardt in the CCS GT4 Porsche. So the track is getting quicker and quicker and quicker.
Yeah, it's not coincidence you got 7 drivers on the timing screen, or do I now mean 8? Yes, I do mean 8, setting their car's fastest time. And this is after we've almost got through 5.5 hours of racing. It's 7 hours today, the Saturday at Mugello, and tomorrow we will complete it with another 5 hours of racing. The 2 vortexes we've had in this race are still circulating, and there was great promise from the 702 early on. We thought, let's see how it's going to play in the top 10. It qualified in 12th position, effectively ahead of a trio of GT3 runners. Unfortunately, an early spin after gaining a few places in the opening couple of laps put it down the order, and since then we've had a fair few rotations. It's down in 16th place for Arno Gomez, so he's well clear in class. A new fastest lap of the race from Hofer Racing. 3 consecutive laps in the 2:06 bracket from Maximilian Bartel. Not just quick, but super consistent. So that's clearly a car that's feeling good, and a driver that's feeling ever better. How long has this stint been? It's about 3 minutes under an hour. He's 57 minutes in, but 2:06.040. Come on, who can beat that?
Well, let's see. I wonder if David Fumanelli's in the Kessel garage going, well, you take my fastest lap of the race, watch this. I'll just get my helmet ready and ready to take over from Alessandro Contreras. Ben Constanduros has some more for us in the pits. Ben.
Got the Pelin Racing Kyle Marcelli with what looks to be, well, certainly slick tyres on the left side. We haven't yet, presumably the other ones have been done already. Yes, they have. 4 used slick tyres on Kyle Marcelli's car. He's already fueled up. And I've been waiting down at Mugello Motorsport to see if they were going to go slick tyres. And actually, they've prepared themselves wet tyres. I was feeling around, and they were definitely had slicks in the garage, but it looks as though the call is for wet tyres for them. So no change there. Watch out for the times of Kyle Marcelli, though, because he is on used slick tyres, but no change here at Mugello Motorsport. I'm going to chat to Julian in just a few moments' time.
Thanks very much. Really exciting news. So let's see how low we can go. The best lap so far, 2 minutes and 6.148 seconds. Where is that going to end up with Kyle Marcelli, who's been super when the track's been wet? The track is drying out. We'll keep an eye on that one for you.
It's actually, they've done a driver change. How quickly have they got that done? Felice Gelmini is
oh yes,
on
of course,
board.
because Carl has been running for a while.
So he said, give me the slicks, I'm going for it. He's obviously been watching the timing screen very closely, and we're going to watch his sector times incredibly closely, because this, and I'm sure everybody up and down the pit lane in GT3 and indeed elsewhere is going to be watching this. Oh, he's off. He's off. He just asked for the power. Round it went. And now does he get stuck in the gravel? Oh, he's got 2 wheels on the gravel. He's got 1 on the hard standing. Felice Gelmini just asked for the power. There was no tire temperature at all. Round he went. That was at the Materazzi Borgo San Lorenzo chicane. He's refired the car again. Now, does he have drive to get out? I think he does. So, yeah, it's turn 5. Yes, it is. So he's managed to get back going again. Now, is he going to brave it, or is he going to come back in and try the wets? Where they were in the race, where they were running, it was worth the gamble. Will the gamble still pay off? Let's see.
Well, he's lost about 20 seconds, but other teams might be going, you know what, those slicks, you can put them to the back of the garage now. Well, let's see. He's calmed it down. I mean, from his point of view, from the Italian racer, Fabrizio Gelmini's point of view, very concerning. And we're just hearing it starting to rain. Some of the camera crew out around the track, so they gambled, and immediately they were given a rap across the nose. Haha, don't you try and play with the weather here. We know what we're doing. Ah, my word. So Pelin Racing, a roll of the dice for Fabrizio Gelmini. Maybe in some ways it would have been, if they wanted to do it, you know, if you've got a driver going into his second stint, because of course Kyle Marcelli had been running for quite some while on this drier circuit. Peter continues to check the weather map to see what is coming our way, but it was the smallest of moments, and it really was a sort of a pendulum motion to the left, to the right, and then around and facing backwards for the 29 Ferrari for Pelin Racing. So Fabrizio Gelmini be feeling very sorry for himself, but also the good news, he got the car going again. The bad news is the rain has just started to fall. Oh, it's fickle here.
But how is it? Just spits, or is it going to come to much? No, it did get a clean third sector, so let's have a look and see what that is. Bear in mind there will be a couple of laps of tyre heat up. Felice Gelmini, the last time by 50. Oh, he's very close to the wet weather tyre drivers. If he can get some temperature in these tyres and not spin again, oh, the rear is all over the place as he comes up the hill, probably the lowest traction part of the circuit, up the hill out of San Donato, turn 1, but up to Luco, and the rear is coming all over the shop.
Yeah, but that's because he was also really working the front of the car, and he was really turning the wheel from side to side to just try and get some more heat. So I think he's realised the message is loud and clear for him. Don't dive too soon, just try and be smooth, get the heat into these dry weather. They were used, scrubbed Michelins, but anywhere he gets close to the curbing on the outside, he, for now, better not to touch it, because that nearly had the tail coming around the very same point he rotated on the outlap.
But if we stay dry another 10 minutes, we're at that crossover point. How brave do you want to be? Do you want to risk it? If you're in the leading position, do you if there's no big change in lap time, don't take the risk. The wet is the safer tyre, but can you make a wet can you make the wet tyre last a whole stint? I don't know if you can. I think the wet tyre is going to overheat if you try and do a full stint on it now.
Yeah, quite possibly, but just remember that, of course, track temperature is still quite low, which is a factor that gives them a bit of a helping hand. Right, trying to look at sector times for Felice Gelmini. Early part of this lap. No, he's not yet quite on the pace of the front runners on wet tyres, but is the track drying? Hard to tell. The light is starting to become gloomier and gloomier here at the Mugello circuit, and if you get it wrong in one corner, the corners come at you thick and fast, and at any moment you see a driver running a little bit wide, it's going to hurt. So down to the final corner, Bucin. In the background you can sort of see the mountains in our little valley, we can see the fields, we can see the trees, but as that Ferrari accelerates away from the final corner, staying off the green and white painted curbs, along the start finish straight he goes. Remember the best lap of the race, what was it, 6.1 seconds or thereabouts, 6.040 seconds.
Well, he's just said his personal best of that car's personal best of the whole race is sector 3. So as the tyre temperature keeps building, he's late on the brakes into San Donato turn 1 and nearly ends up in the gravel again. The rear of the car, as soon as he asks for the power, the tail just kicks out, slips and slides. And when we went for our track walk yesterday, that incline up from San Donato to Luco, if you're watching on our pictures on Crevendic Motorsport TV, it does not give it justice. It is so steep, and we've all driven on a wet road up a steep hill, and you'll lose traction. Racing car, imagine that with way more power. Oh.
Yeah, it's steep enough to get your calf muscles working, that is absolutely for sure. But right now the other teams are looking and give them another few laps. Still some quick laps coming in. Martin Rump now back into second place in the Mugello Motorsport car in the 992 Cup class. Of course, he's just got back on board that, taken over from Julian Hansers. Class lead is Rick Broikers, 7th overall. He's lapping 2 minutes 12. Mugello Motorsport, Martin Rump, 2 minutes 10, but then he's on fresher rubber, but he's on wet weather rubber. Only one driver out there on slick tyres, and that's Felice Gelmini, Pelion Racing. And down to Ben.
With me, but I've gone down to Era Motorsport because they've been in the fuel area for a long time, and they now join me down in pit lane. Carl Tilley's going to be jumping out. We'll have a chat with him in a few moments, but Jake Hill is getting back in, and guess what tyres Jake is taking? New slick tyres, shiny new slick tyres. We saw Gelmini with used tyres. That was to get, but Jake Hill reckons he's got the confidence enough to be able to get rid of that shine and get these slick tyres to work. So another Ferrari, another GT3 car going on slick tyres. No one else is brave enough as yet, but it's the young guns that are.
That's interesting. I'm surprised they don't have any scrubbed dry tyres that they would want to put on, because they don't have that shininess that they have when they first come out of the mould. But let's see, because sticker tyres in the wet is, or wetish is not so pleasant, I don't think. But no, Jake Hill's going to give it a go. Again, Era Motorsport need to roll the dice.
Yeah,
they're running a little bit further down where they want to be.
Yeah, they well, they're listed down in 9th place. Moments ago they were 8th, but Jake Hill comes out into 9th place, but worth a roll of the dice. But with all the dry weather running, you'd have thought they might have just put one set, given them a little bit of scrub through practice. But anyhow, we are not them, they are not us. But certainly adding an air of excitement. Just under an hour and a half remaining in the first 7 hours, this 12 hours of Mugello, and to see not one but two teams seeing what they can do to pick up the pace. All race so far, it's been on wet weather tyres, two teams, both with Ferraris, but unfortunately for them, the windscreen wipers going. Yes, it is raining out on the track, so bad news for Jake Hill, even worse here for Felice Gelmini. And oh yeah, it's now started. The rain is not just trickling down, it is hitting the circuit hard. Can't quite work out where on the circuit that is, but that is proper rain. That could be the start-finish straight, actually.
Well, and imagine now you're on dry tyres and the rain started. In fact, yeah, that rain around village of Scarperia, which is down the road from here, we knew it was going to be close, but we thought it had missed us, but it hasn't. The 29 Pelin Racing Ferrari is now trying to get, and will just be trying to get back to the pits without crashing now.
I know, absolutely so. And his flying lap, the one without the twitch, 2 minutes 13, the fastest lap of the race, 2 minutes 6. So not getting close, 7 seconds down, and that is going to be coming into the pits, perhaps. Now, let us wait and see, because is he going to be able, as the track becomes wetter rather than dry, will Felice Gelmini have another moment? He's already had that one spin on his outlap on the scrub slicks. The only other driver to follow him onto slicks is Jake Hill, the Aero Motorsport Ferrari, and his weren't even scrubbed. They were fully brand new, shiny, slippery tyres. But at the moment, that little flurry of rain, but we don't even know if it's the whole way around the circuit, but there was a point on the circuit in which it was raining properly hard. The Pelin Racing Ferrari, no, he's not coming into the pits. He's pressing on. He's carrying on what's left on the clock. 1 minute 27 seconds.
Oh, well. I mean, in terms of the sector times, Felice Gelmini, well, lap time-wise, he lost quite a lot of time there. He's kind of 5 seconds behind the wet tyre-equipped cars. As in fact, the leader is just going to come through now to put another lap down. That's not what Pelin Racing want, as Sergio Nicolai on the wet tyres slips and slides his way through as well. But very respectfully, Felice Gelmini just moves out the way to allow him through, knowing that it's more a case of just survival now. I think you've got to maybe just cut your losses, come in and put the wets back on.
I think so, because having done a relatively okay lap, his 2 minutes 13 was followed by a 2 minute 15 second lap. So as you point out, the car's at the very sharp end of the field and lapping just under 2 minutes 10. And the weather map is showing certainly more rain on the way. What you can't tell from a lot of weather maps, though, is the sheer intensity of the rain when it comes. There was that moment a couple of minutes ago, we could see somewhere around the lap there's a puddle and the rain was hammering into it hard. But is it going to just keep blowing through? Well, we heard that Carl said he would give us a word. He's down with Ben.
Out of the car after a decent stint out there, but still very tricky conditions.
Yeah, very tricky conditions. We basically double in a bit stinted that wet tyre, which was made the last sort of like hour pretty tough going. Honestly, it was great fun. It was just a case of trying to keep it roughly pointing in the right direction. But no, the Ferrari's going well. Lots of fun driving it, and it's always special to drive a Ferrari in Italy. So.
How much did the tyre drop off versus how much did the track get better?
Obviously, track definitely was getting better and better and better. After sort of 25 or so laps, we noticed a fairly big drop in tyre performance. And from that point on, it was just about trying to find the puddles to keep them cool and try and stop them from turning to mush.
Now, I've noticed that Jake has chosen to go out on brand new slick tyres. How much of advice from the cockpit did you manage to give him?
I just let him know it's definitely getting to that transition phase, but it is going to be hard for him for sure. As long as he can keep temp, he'll be fine, because there's no standing water. It's just a case of keeping temp in them. Given if it was a slightly softer compound tyre, it would be a no-brainer, but this one's a little bit of a gamble.
So you're expecting him to struggle initially, but hopefully there won't be more rain and it will come to him at the end of this last stint.
Yeah, it sounds all right in theory, doesn't it?
Well done, Carl. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well,
well.
Well, what was interesting there is Carl Tilley was talking to Ben Constantinos in the pits. I thought, well, he is being careful. A 2-minute 24-second lap. Aha! Then suddenly some other colours came on the screen, followed by a 2-minute 9.5-second lap. So he's done the early laps. He's just being a little bit cautious, but now he's starting to wind it up. But only the drivers of the top calibre could do this. Anybody else, you're primed for failure rather than success when you go in these dicey, dodgy, changing conditions. In theory, they're dry, but that little flurry of rain would have made a big difference. It seems to have eased away again.
And it's the temperatures, everything. That's what Kyle Tilley mentioned there. If the tyre's within the temperature window where it's happy, not too high, not too low, it's good. And he was talking about not trying to get the wet tyre to turn to mush. That's because it overheats, because it gets too dry. So it is at that switch over. And Jake Hill was at the best sector of anyone all race long in sector 3 on that dry tyre. The best lap of that car that car has done all race, 209.5. He's just gone personal best again in sector 2. So interestingly there that and how is Felice Gelmini doing? No, not able to go quite anything like the pace of Jake Hill. They're both in the same spec of car, 296 GT3, and they're both running on that tyre. The one thing they really don't want is a code 60, because they cannot keep the tyre temperature in a code 60. Let's get back down to Ben.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely still a gamble, because we've seen 992 cars come in and take the wet tyres. We've just seen Sebastian Ajith come in, take wet tyres. The Lamborghini in front of me here, and they've gone wet tyres. So it really is only two kind of pro drivers who have decided that they are able to cope with it. And Felice Gelmini with that off and sitting stationary for a while. In fact, I think he's come back in at the top of pit lane, and I think it looks as though they might be changing the decision again. So yes, if you can keep the temperature in it, then it's fine. But as soon as you drop off that cliff, you'll never get back up it.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. And 3 consecutive laps in the 2-minute 15 shows the pace isn't there. The blue and orange car in the pit lane, and Jake Hill, though, newer rubber for him. 209. Nah, not quick enough. 208.3 the following lap. So British Touring Car Champion of 2024, a driver who is seemingly happy to jump into anything and get straight on the pace with it. He is making his work. Still not the fastest lap of the race. That's still set by drivers in the 206s too. It's the Hofer Racing Mercedes, 206.040. But this is impressive from Jake Hill.
Great news for fans of the Proton Huber Porsche team. They've got it repaired. They're back going again. At the moment, where are they to get to? They're in 29th place. They've lost 30 laps in repairing that car, but they're back out and running again. So very impressive from that crew to get that, because that wheel was absolutely locked solid. So they've earned that pizza for sure.
Yeah, they certainly have. It's cold. It's sitting at the back of the garage. They shouldn't have been busy at the time. But we don't know. The E2P Racing Aston Martin had a problem after a small off, or maybe that's what caused the off, but that's still sitting in the garage. But everyone else is still going. From the 31 starters, Darren Curry's back out in the Treble One Racing IRC, running third and last in the GTX class. They had a long time in the pits, but back on the track. So good resilience from all the teams, I must say.
Yeah, very impressive preparation, and they've done a lot of running this week too, as Jake Hill has just gone absolute best in Sector 2. Remember, he's the only driver on the circuit with dry tyres on, by our knowledge. He set the car's best lap, the last lap, by a 208.339. Felice Gelmini decided to give the dry tyres a go, couldn't quite get them in the window. He's gone back to wets now in the Pellin Racing car, as Jake Hill sets the best lap of the race at 2:04.629. That is 2 seconds quicker than anyone has gone all race long. And so those dry tyres are working. He's got them in that temperature range.
Yeah, and effectively that's the best part of 4 seconds quicker than his previous lap, which in turn was another 1.5 seconds better than the lap 4. A little bit of traffic across the nose of the Pellin Racing Ferrari, but for Era Motorsport and Jake Hill, he's got some cars up the track, but not too close for him. And how's he going to go? But 2:04.629. So in certain hands, but again, it was a roll of the dice. It can work, but it was about him not pushing too hard too soon. He certainly waited 2 or 3 laps until he felt the heat was there. You know, he did a lap of 2:24, but bang, as soon as he was confident, very next lap, 2:09. And then from there, he's been not just chipping away, chopping away, 2:04, by far the quickest lap of the race.
Well, Kyle Tilley was quoted when they announced this programme that Jake Hill was the best FIA silver-graded driver in the world. can't come up with an argument against that comment. In
It would
terms
be.
of, I mean, the silver drive, you know, in FIA grading, you have bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. Bronze is a non-professional driver, doesn't make a living from racing. Silver is, it might as well be called a grey because it's a grey area of what falls into a silver, but it's such an important part of a mixed driver lineup. The gold drivers and the platinum drivers, they're all so closely matched, but the difference between an okay silver and a really good one is massive, massive difference. And what Jake's doing right now for Aero Motorsport, what a secret weapon that is. Maybe not so secret now, sorry guys.
Look, it is, and you get drivers who are very much fantastic until it gets wet. He clearly gets better when it gets wet. That's the real mark of a driver. But it was also just he gets better when it gets wet. That's the real mark of a driver. But it was also just to have the feel for the car, the understanding when to really start going for it. It's about started the race at 11 o'clock this morning. We're getting towards 5 o'clock in the afternoon in another dozen minutes or so. And next lap around for Jake Hill, still down in 8th place overall, but not too far off his very best, just 0.2 of a second. 2:04.6 seconds, 2:04.8 seconds. Well, there you go. It's about speed, it's about consistency, and also in terms of difference there, it was about traffic. He had a couple of cars right in front of him. Don't take the risk because there is a dry line, and the other line that looks fairly dry, but it certainly is not the racing line, and you won't get as much grip, and even less grip, of course, while you're on slicks.
And the thing is, until the next pit stops start happening, his advantage is actually only going to get better because the drivers all the other drivers who are on wets, their wets are only just going to keep overheating and wearing out. So I think we could see a very busy pit lane. Ben and Diana are going to be kept busy over the next 10 or 15 minutes, I reckon.
Okay, interesting little element. Oh dear, we've got a spin of the 965
well,
Porsche.
This could be this is the code 60 that they want. This is not what Aero Motorsport need. They need green flag to keep those tyres in the window. A code 60 is not what they need, and MDM are off the road at turn 1.
Okay, right, we had Pellin Racing coming back in. Felice Gelmini's just done a 2-minute 2.4, and that, as far as we're concerned, was on a fresh set of wet tyres.
Okay.
Or was it?
Or
I doubt
was
he
it?
came in to get a second set of slicks unless he felt, no, the scrub ones weren't much good, but that's 2 seconds faster than the best that Jake had managed. Code 60, though, everyone slowed down. The Heart of Racing team, Mercedes, literally the first car into the pits. That, actually, 2 other cars, he's coming right behind the Hofer Racing Mercedes. They're going to be the ones that scramble in, along with the GT4 Mercedes from Venture and the RPM Racing Porsche. They will get first to the pumps. That's what they want to be.
Yeah, you want to be first in the queue. We've all been there at the supermarket fuel station and having to wait. You want to get to the front of the queue. It's no different here as they go into the fueling area. Heart of Racing with SPS, they're putting some fuel into their Mercedes.
Remember how sad we felt for Proton Huber competition? Out after long repairs, and Manuel Lauk, who started the car, 2 minutes 2.7 seconds. So maybe that one was also put onto slick tyres. They were worth a gamble, having lost so much time sitting in the pit garage after the repairs, and it took forever just to get the left rear wheel off that car so he could continue their checks and investigations. But one does feel the pace that's running, it must surely be on the right rubber.
Did Max Partel get the overtake done on the Heart of Racing Aston Martin into Buccini there before the code 60 comes out? The race direction will be having a little study of that. He might not have, I don't know, but that's something that they were looking at. Is Heart of Racing still filling up their class. Mercedes Gray Newell brought it in and was having a quick chat with the team manager and driver Ian James last night, and we were talking about Hannah Gresham and how good a job she did in qualifying. It's remarkable. And I said, is it true that Dubai was her first GT3 race? And he said, yes. He says, we've done that race and we've done some testing in our Aston Martin, but that is it. And she told us that she hasn't driven the car in the wet before. Ben Constanduros, you're about to get very busy.
Well, yes, it's already started to get busy. I can tell you that Red Ant Racing in their Mercedes, they're going on to a brand new set of slick tyres. Frustratingly for whoever's about to jump into that car, those slick tyres have been sitting on the apron for a while, so they've been losing a lot of temperature, and of course they're going to continue to lose more temperature as the cars go out on circuit. There was a vortex that chose to stay on wet tyres. There was also RPM Racing that chose to stay on wet tyres. We've got the GT4 Mercedes in front of me here. No change of tyres for them, so they're staying on wet tyres. It's an amazing split of strategies here, and it doesn't seem particularly obvious for anybody as yet as to what the right call or the wrong call, or maybe there isn't a right and a wrong call. Now, next car to come to me, very crucially, is the Heart of Racing Mercedes. It's the wrong end of pit lane for me, so I have to change my direction of travel here. But what have they got on the apron? I can't see tyres prepared as yet. It will be a change of driver for them, and it will be wet tyres by the looks of things. Yes, so they're going on to the wet tyres, you see. No one really is sure what's right and wrong. Still, IBC Motors comes past me. Have they changed onto slicks, or will they continue on the wet tyre? Wet tyres for IBC Motors.
Yeah, but what we saw just ahead of the one of the IBC Motors cars, the Manamori Porsche, was the Hoffa Racing Mercedes having to be pushed from refuelling into the pit lane. That suggests a mechanical problem. If you could look at that one, it's down near pit in. That came in from 4th place. And Maxi Partel have been doing some fantastic lapping in that car, but clearly it didn't really want to have to be pushed. It should be driving under its own power away from refuelling.
It's never the right end of pit lane, is it?
Of course not.
No, never is. No, we're just making you work, Ben. Sergio Nicolai definitely wouldn't have wanted to see the Hoffa Racing car being pushed because it was in front of him, and that cost him a couple of seconds, but nothing too major. As Kessel Racing are in the pits now. Manamori have got out before the green flag, so green flag in the air now, whereas Kessel Racing are in fuel, so Kessel Racing are going to be punished hard here.
It really is swings and roundabouts, just according to where you are on the lap, where around the circuit you are when it goes to code 60. If you're just starting the lap, you're going to have to queue for your fuel, or do you just go, no, we'll just try and get fuel at a later date. But good news, the Hoffa Racing Mercedes is going under its own power. Don't know what the problem was, why it had to be pushed from refueling into the pit lane. Luckily for them, their pit garage was actually at the pit in end of the pit lane rather than the far end. Then they'd have had to push it a very long way indeed.
Jake Hill stayed out from that Air Motorsport Ferrari, so this is going to be a tippy-toe few laps, I think, because under code 60 the tyres are so cold, and just as he passed underneath our commentary position over the start-finish line, he was weaving back and forward like you see him in the British Touring Car Championship when they're trying to get the tyre temperature in on the warm-up lap, trying to do that. Although it's maybe not the quickest way in code 60, the tyre temperature is much more important.
It's down to experience, it's down to feel, but you just have to do everything you possibly can. Some ways of warming up the tyres work for some drivers better than others, but Jack Hill is also during those repairs. It's just going to the fastest laps has been lowered, of course, with a big time by the Audi sitting across his nose, the Continental Racing car. He has got clear of Heart of Racing team, but he wants to be pulling away. Down in the pits, it's Diana. Yeah, you mentioned that the red Cabell Jordan had come in for refueling, which it has. Rick Droiker's behind the wheel, just waiting for him to come into the pit lane. The team are waiting here to receive them. But just further back, so the pit-in entry area, the 965, the MDM Motorsport car has come back on the back of the truck, and they're trying to offload that. However, in the garage next to them, the 95, Manamori Energy by EBI Motors, that they're waiting to do their driver change and final pit stop. So there's a little bit of navigation going on down here. The marshals have got it well under control. They have the yellow flags at this entry, so when Rick comes out, he will see those straight away. So they're just having to get themselves settled down here. The 902 Homeguard Motorsport, they're also waiting for a final pit stop, and so a red Camel, but it's just... It's a little bit grey in the air down here at the moment, so it's all going to happen any minute now. I can see a different array of tyres. The 965, they're not going to be doing anything straight away, but they've got slick tyres outside their garage at the moment. The 95 Manamori, they have wets, as do Homeguard, and red Camel Jordan. I'll update you on that one when when Rick makes his way up the pit lane. Thanks very much, Di. And I tell you what, you say it's grey in the air. The language might be blue in the pit lane shortly, because Maxi Partel, having got up into second place, was being blocked by a driver several laps down, David Pogosoyan, who was all over the nose of his Mercedes, and when he eventually ceded track position, which he needed to do, not being on the same lap, he did precisely the same to Hannah Grisham in the Heart of Racing team Mercedes. And almost put, but let's hear from Rick. He's down with you.
No, he's not with me. He's just come into the pit lane, apron. He's jumping out, handing over to Fabian Dance, and they are going for slick tyres. They're taking off the wet tyres, which are well worn now, as you can imagine, and it's slick tyres going on to that 909 red Camel Jordan.
Interesting stuff there. That will take a little bit of warming up in the Porsche. But interesting to see if a GT3 car is easier to get that dry tyre working, or a Porsche 992. I guess the GT3 car has the traction control, has a bit more aero, which could work the tyre a little bit more. They both got ABS in this trim, so interesting. Let's see what it's a bit of a task there for Fabian Dance, but they're throwing the dry tyres at it as Olivier Gomez goes again quicker in GTX with the best lap in that class, a 206.386.
Right, Sergio Nicolai in fueling area at the moment. The Manamari Energy by EBI Motors Porsche sitting on a lead of over a lap, but that's going to be tumbling down now. So maybe he'll be back out before Max Partel goes by, but Max owes us a pit stop very soon for Hofer Racing, and that should put Hannah Grisham back from third into second, and Hannah presses on, having been pleased to get past the Audi that was a lap or so down in the hands of Russian racer David Pogosyan, Continental Racing Audi. Still, we're getting a host of drivers setting their cars fastest lap, but still for quite a lot of the drivers at their final pit stops, they come up, they're going, yeah, give me the slick tyres now, because it's almost a record. There doesn't appear to be in any rain for about 5 or 6 laps now. That's cool.
Yeah, that helps, doesn't it? And it looks like we've dodged that little I say a little fairly reasonable rain cloud. It was okay, it was the lightest on the scale of rain clouds according to the radar, but it seems to have passed through, so hopefully we are clean to go between now and the next 48 minutes. What I want to know is what tyres do EBI Motors put on that Manamari Energy, a leading car in this race, as Sergio Nicolai still in fuel, but I'm sure Diana Binks is waiting patiently at the EBI Motors pit to see what Michelin tyres are put on, and you want to try and keep them in the jackets as long as you can to keep them warm. Diana?
Down here, the car hasn't arrived onto the pit apron yet. They are waiting on it. The 965 MDM Motorsport that I told you about that came back on the truck was taken off the truck. They changed tyres, and I believe they went onto wets. And there's lots of gravel all over that pit apron. They're sweeping that up quickly as the 95 Manamari Energy by EBI Motors comes in. It's a driver change for that team, and they've gone for another Michelin wet tyre, so it's a wet tyre going onto that GT3 number 95.
Thanks, Diana. Peter looked quite surprised at that, but you know what? They're the team in the position they don't need to gamble, and they could be running 3-4 seconds a lap off the pace of the very quickest drivers on the slick tyres, but I think they've taken choose to be safe. That's what they've done. They had a lap and a half advantage. It could suddenly tumble away. We have 46 minutes remaining on the clock. Now I think they've done their sums right. They should be in the lead at the end of this race unless something really changes quickly. Still the fastest lap of the race is that 1 minute 58.4 second lap from Jake Hill. He's moved Era Motorsport and their Ferrari up to 7th place overall. He's still lapping frequently just below 2 minutes, but maybe if they feel they can shed 4 or 5 seconds a lap, which seems enormous, but you know, all we're going to get in this race, if we've got 46 minutes remaining, is about another 20 laps for the race leader. 80 seconds, yeah, he should still be in front, the EBI Motors car, Sabino De Castro, come the end of the 7th hour where we park the cars on the grid. Peter's pointed out before, I'll point out again, nobody can come in for a pit stop, a tyre change and anything pit stop in the final 10 minutes this evening in the lead up to 6 o'clock. So they've got to nail their colours to the mast before then.
It's been another fantastic stint from Max Partel, come up into 2nd place. He's just set the personal best time there, 2:02.69. That's 3 seconds quicker than the Heart of Racing car behind him, and Partel's got to come in by regulation as they come in the next 13 minutes. So the Hoffer Racing team will be waiting patiently for their number 11 car. And I've been curious to see which driver they put in for that sprint to the intervention break in 45 minutes time. They've had a great run, but that battle in Am particularly is really, really close, because you've got those 2 Mercedes for Heart of Racing and for Hoffer in 2nd and 3rd overall, but Hoffer in 2nd, Heart of Racing in 3rd. And then in 5th overall, not a million miles behind them, is the Continental Racing Audi, the run by Simpson Motorsport. So the AM teams have done really, really well today.
Yeah, they have. It's been a very, very tricky race for all parties concerned, even if they, you know, constantly changing weather conditions. But also what we forget is the fact, if you just joined us, this is the team's first experience on the Michelin wet weather tyre, and it really was a question of suck it and see how it works. Some got the tyre pressures wrong, but they very much got it right later in the race. That's why Heart of Racing team with Hannah Grisham up into third place. They started second, tumbled down to about a 12th position or so towards the tail of GT3, but they've chipped away, got it right. But there were many, many considerations to this. Not everybody was getting it right. In fact, I don't think any team has got it fully right the whole way through, because the weather conditions chopped and changed, wetter, drier. And then as it is drying out, the track is still damp. It's still damp at various points. And certain points, as you look around the circuit, Peter, the track is actually properly damp looking. Maybe that's just parts of the track where any breeze that picked up doesn't touch the circuit. But the fact of the matter is we have finally got laps below the 2-minute mark, but that's still a dozen seconds away from the quickest laps. The aggregate laps in qualifying just shows it ain't natural slick weather conditions for them at all.
A little bit of a struggle at the moment on those dry tyres for the number 909 Red Camel Jordan's car. That's running second place in the 992 category. Last time by was 10 seconds slower than Martin Rump in the leading Milner Motorsport car. Not sure what tyres Milner are on. I presume it's wets, but that is a big struggle, and that could risk the Red Camel Jordan's team falling off the lead lap. They have just had a pit stop, so that we have to bear that in mind. They're only 6 minutes into the stint, whereas Martin Rump is 52 minutes into the stint. So we should see the Milner car have to come in, and that could then put Red Camel back into the front of the field. However, if they're losing 10 seconds a lap, that could come back again.
Yeah, well, I'll keep an eye on that, because that could well be the sort of first lap they're doing on slick tyres. And, you know, let's have a little bit of caution there from Fabian Daz. But we'll see. 2 minutes 16 seconds last time around. What's he going to do this time around? His sector 2 time is not... No, it's okay for his class, but it's not earth-shattering. Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that, because it's been driven really well thus far. But some of the teams, bear in mind, we believe that Sabino de Castro, leading the race, is finishing the Saturday sector on wet weather tyres. He had his lap pace last time, 2 minutes 18. We want to see it next time around, his second flying lap. But if he is back on wet weather tyres, or still on wet weather tyres, you'd expect it to be quicker than that, because he doesn't have to...
My guess would be then that they feel like they can get there.
Absolutely.
Because you don't want to go into fuel under green. The difference of going into fuel under green rather than going under code 60 is enormous. So I don't think they would have done that by choice. I would think that they feel like they've got enough fuel in the tank to make it to the intervention break.
Right, under a minute until the end of the code 60 procedure. In fact, their message has been on the screen for a handful of seconds now, so it's under a minute. Code 60 still with us. Jake Hill, where is he around the lap? I think he just completed a lap. He's still in fourth place, so he's the second of the Ferraris. Third place Ferrari is Marco Frezzo, the Kessel Racing car. Second place, the Heart of Racing by SPS Mercedes, and Banamari by Energy by Ebby Motors Porsche leads this race by 3 minutes on the nose. That means Hannah Graham's car for Heart of Racing team has got onto the lead lap. That is a big, big moment for Heart of Racing team. They worked hard for that.
So Jake Hill then in fourth place for Era Motorsport, 21 minutes to go. And how impressive that speed was before that code 60. Might the goal change now? Might it be more of a fuel number game for Era Motorsport here rather than actual outright pace? Because they do not want to pit for fuel under green. That is going to lose them a lot of time compared to the rival.
Motors Porsche. Sabino de Castro is the driver who is bringing that to the end of the Saturday action, but still waiting to see how tomorrow is going to shake out. The weather forecast is slightly better, but as we've seen today, the weather hasn't behaved according to the forecast, so that will keep all the teams on their toes.
Three cars on the lead lap. Game on tomorrow, one of which an AM category car. Really impressive. I mean, you've got to think that the Hoffer car would have been on that lead lap as well if it weren't for that incident, and they're, I'm sure, as aware of that as anybody. So you'll have just one lap behind. No, actually 2 laps behind the Continental Racing by Simpson Audi. And then a further lap behind them will be Jake Hill in 5th, so he's got 3 laps to catch up.
Have you got the checkered flag, Peter? If so, wave it, because the EBI Motors Porsche is coming to cross the start-finish line. 7 hours of racing here at Mugello on the Saturday completed. So many tales to tell, so many ifs and buts and maybes, but the best job done with Sabino De Castro completing that, building really on the very hard work as well of Sergio Nicolai and a little bit from Fabrizio Broggi. So smiles down there. The first part of the job is done. It's one of the friendliest teams in the pit lane in 24H races, so double smiles all around.
Fantastic stuff. Yeah. Oh, they've even got a team dog as well. That's always a good thing to have.
I think
good
so.
For morale. So checkered flag out then, but that's not checkered flag of the Michelin 12 Hours of Mugello. Oh no, we have 5 racing for you tomorrow. We've got the team dog. It's a King Charles, an Italian King Charles Spaniel. Fantastic stuff. That keeping the smiles out in the team. I love it. Brilliant stuff. Keeping dry as well, very important. Diana Binks is down in that EBI Motors garage.
I certainly am, and I was going to chat to the doggy, but I won't. Fabrizio, what a great way to end part 1 of this weekend here.
Yes, it is absolutely great, but of course the race is long. We have learned, unfortunately, with some sorrows that races do end at the checkered flag on the second day. So we will see.
We'll get you to just walk out with us. Yes. We've just got a little bit of an issue. I think the weather's affecting all of us. So if you just wouldn't mind, that's great, yeah.
It's been a very difficult race for everybody. People that put slick and tried, then they went out, and it was worse. To gain 5 seconds, then you were losing a few minutes. We have been lucky. We did a decent race. I sacrificed my stint today to be in this position. I haven't been in the car because they were the safest. And I haven't had a chance to try ever the car on the range. So I decided to sacrifice my part today, since tomorrow it looks like it's going to be dry, and then tomorrow I'm going to be in the car.
So have you been involved in talking to the team as the day's gone on?
Sorry?
Have you been talking to the team and engineers as the day has gone on?
Yes. We have always been discussing if we were going to go on or not, because they wanted to put me in. I wanted to drive. It would have been fantastic to experience the wet, but probably it's going to be fantastic, at least for the first time, be on a test and not on an actual race. And then we saw other AM drivers getting into the car and spinning and getting into the sand. So we decided, let's not take the risk, let's position the car, and tomorrow is going to be a race on.
Well, we've got 5 hours to go tomorrow. Now, Sergei's just behind us here. He's been out in the car, hasn't he? Yes. We'll just grab him for a little... Sergei, we were just chatting about how challenging the conditions have been today. How was it from your seat?
It was actually pretty good. It was our second time in the rain. So we did a good job, but we still have 4 hours tomorrow.
5 hours.
5, sorry.
I hope it's 5.
Yeah, it was a little bit longer for me in the rain.
Well executed at this point. Obviously, we've got tomorrow to go. So obviously, we wish you all the best for tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow.
Brilliant stuff from the EBI Motors team. Always smiling. And this was a step up they made 2 seasons ago to step up to the 911 GT3R. In fact, it was last year they moved up to it. They were always running the 992 Cup car before that. Yeah, 2024. They, and it's a big step. You're talking triple the price probably for a the latest GT3 car, which that 992 is.
No, absolutely so. It's a big step, and you're coming up against teams that have other experience already with the GT3 cars. It's a big learn. Now, one thing that's really unusual here is the cars will form up on the grid. They will not be parked in their garages overnight. So the car we're looking at to come round and form up on pole for tomorrow is that number 95 Porsche from Manamari Energy by EBI Motors, and it's working its way. The evening is falling very fast over the circuit here. 6:29 is sunset, but we haven't really seen the sun. Can't set today. It's just a different form of cloud, I think, today. But we've had thrills and spills. We've had chopping and changing order, and there's so much for these teams to consider. If we'd had this weather in a year where they already knew the tyres would be one thing, but they were learning as they went. And we just heard from Fabrizio Broggi there saying that he sacrificed his space in the car today so they could get their position with his two more experienced teammates. And tomorrow will be his turn to learn. And would it be nice to learn the wet turn in testing? No, the West tyre is being tried for the first time in the race for all of these drivers. So tricky for them.
Well, if we arrive tomorrow with dry conditions, there's a chance, but it's quite literally 50-50 by the forecast that we're looking at the moment. The thing is, though, that Kessel Racing in second place, and we'll start, on the same lap. Like you say, we've got 3 cars that will start on the same lap: Manamuri Energy, Porsche, Kessel Ferrari, and Heart of Racing Mercedes. Kessel Racing are in a unique position because they have dry tyres fitted to their car right now. So if we have dry conditions tomorrow, they don't need to pit to change. EBI Motors do, Manamuri Energy by EBI Motors do. But if we come to wet conditions, Kessel Racing also get to change for safety reasons. They get to put wet tyres on. So Kessel are in the pound seat, and they only put 1 stint in for David Faminelli. They still have 3 hours of his driving time they can use up. That is gold dust. So if right now, who is in the absolute most comfy position? Yes, EBI Motors crossed the line ahead, but actually it's the Kessel Ferrari, it's that blood red Ray-Ban Ferrari that's in a good spot, in my view.
No, I absolutely concur, but I sort of had a sort of wry smile on my face. I was still thinking they've got to get round the first corner tomorrow. It might have 5 hours of racing. I'm not trying to be the old cynic, I'm just being old. But, the advantage has come their way, but it didn't come their way by just good fortune. They had to interpret the situation. We heard from Fabrizio Broggi. He knows he's going to have a lot of time in the car tomorrow. He hasn't done that. That's the car that came home first with an advantage of best part of 2.5 minutes, but that's nothing, because when the cars are forming up on the grid, which they are now for tomorrow's race, it's only 1 grid position. It's not 2 minutes and 29 seconds. No, sir.
So it will be, David Pogosayan for Continental Racing by Simpson Audi will be 1 lap down starting tomorrow. The Era Motorsport Ferrari, after some amazing work in those last couple of hours by Jake Hill, it must be said, they'll be 2 laps down. Now, the biggest one for me, though, Bruce, and I did not see this, was Milner Motorsport actually finished a lap ahead of Red Camel Jordans. So they're on 158 laps. Red Camel Jordans in second in 992, they're on 157 laps. So that I did not expect that. So that late code 60 really did play in the favour of Milner Motorsport. In terms of the AM class, Seblitude, I cannot believe they've managed that. They've also managed to be a lap ahead of RPM Racing, of Krone Racing. So it's all to play for. GT4 Venture are a lap ahead of CCS Racing. So very, very tight. In fact, it's at the front of the field where it's the tightest. It's the only category where we have multiple cars on the lead lapping category.
Yeah, really, really is. But it's been an enthralling day. Night appears. The cloak of darkness is falling across the Mugello circuit. But it's been enthralling. The teams have learned as they went along. And then that gamble in the final hour, people starting to go, you know what, let's try slicks. Didn't work for all of them. And certainly you had to feel for Hoffa Racing being spun around there. Alexander Prince, the innocent party there, unfortunately, but that's put them several laps down. And you work so hard for 6.5 hours to gain track position and be on the right tyres at the right time, not just for the end of the race, but for tomorrow's race tomorrow morning. A little bit of contact and it can all change. That's racing, that's endurance racing. Smile on my face. I think it's been a brilliant Saturday here at the 12 hours of Mugello. 5 hours to play. Who's going to win? You reckon it could be Kessel Racing. They're certainly starting from the outside tomorrow with an advantage in their Ferrari. Or are they?
I don't think there's any guarantees, but who has got the best position heading into tomorrow? I would say it was Kessel, but there is, as was proven today, nothing is guaranteed. And with the weather being so unpredictable, I don't know. But everyone has seen the checkered flag now, albeit at slightly reduced speed under code 60. So 3 cars then on the lead lap. That is the number 5 EBI Motors Manamuri Energy Porsche, the number 8 Kessel Ferrari, and the 27 Heart of Racing Mercedes AMG. A great job from them. They're an AM class car and they're there on the overall lead lap. Fantastic stuff. We've seen it before. CP Racing as an AM class car winning overall in these races. Could Heart of Racing repeat that feat? Let's see. 2 laps back from them is the Continental Racing Audi, number 69. Then that's in 4th place. 5th place, a great fight back from Jake Hill in the final couple of hours, making that brave call to go into dry tyres, and fortune definitely favoured the brave there. They're a further lap back, 3 laps off the leaders. They're on the same lap as the 992 class leader, the 921 Milner Motorsport car, which is in 6th overall. In fact, there's a lot of people on 158 laps. It's Aero Motorsport in 5th, that leading 921 Milner car, the 11 Hofer Mercedes, the 71 Duta Audi, and the 93 Mercedes for Red Ant Racing. So very, very exciting there, who comes out on top. Then one thing that just didn't quite fall their way was Red Camels. They are 2nd in category, but they are going to start a lap down on Milner Motorsport. There's going to have to be some strategical genius and some great driving from their pit wall and indeed behind the wheel. In 11th, it's the number 44 ARC Bratislava car. They're on 157 laps. A further lap behind is the Scuderia Praha Ferrari. Then it's the 29 Ferrari of Pelin Racing on 155 laps, which they share with the GTX leader of the Gomez brothers, who actually brought out that code 60 towards the end of the race. Leading in the 992 AM class, a team that have had an incredibly eventful day, I think it would be fair to say. The 888 Seblejew Racing team, there in 15th overall, sharing the same lap as the MP Mercedes, car number 58. Then it's 2nd in 992 AM, that's the 907 RPM Racing machine of Tracy Crowe, Nick Johnson and Philip Hamprecht. A good fight back from Homeguard Motorsport. They had to start at the back of the pack. They're going to roll off from 18th tomorrow on the same lap as that Krone Racing car. Then it's Ajith Kumar Racing. They're on the same lap as the 2nd place car in class. They're 3rd in class at the moment. 901 Kumar Racing. They are in a fighting position for tomorrow to see how they can go and see if they can take the honours in the AM class. 973 Ebby Motors, their 992 Cup car, sits in 20th. In 21st, then, it's the number 949 for Scuderia Ferron car. Then 22nd, it's the 992 Porsche Baltic machine. GT4, really interesting. GT4, there's actually 2 laps between the Venture Engineering Mercedes and the CCS Porsche, the Gebhardt family outing car. So at the moment, it's advantage Venture. 965 MDM Porsche in 992. They've shown a lot of pace, but they've just had too many incidents, unfortunately. They're a little bit off the pace in terms of laps for 992, but let's see what they can do tomorrow. The number 701 Vortex is in 26th. The 928 HRT Porsche is 27th. The Lotus PB Racing machine, unfortunately, a lot of repairs required to get the fuel pump repaired. 33 laps they lost there, but they'll come back tomorrow fighting. A big crash for the 73 Proton Huber car put them down the order. They'll start from 29th tomorrow, and also the 111 IRC GT. A few problems for them. They came home 30th and will hopefully come back out fighting tomorrow. I don't know if we'll see the E2P Aston Martin tomorrow. They've been in the pits throughout the day since that incident on lap 58. Hopefully we do, because it's always great to have our smiling Spaniards out on track. Unfortunately, it was a non-start for the Pelin Racing number 23 machine. Well, be sure to join us.
Q&Q Pharmacy, quality healthcare at affordable price.
மணக்க மணக்க மசாலா, மணக்காடு சிக்கன் மசாலா மற்றும் சில்லி சிக்கன் மசாலா.
மணக்காடு மசாலா. Daily, daily. Taste daily. Taste the daily.